of the West Lafayette School Board of Trustees. Our first item on our agenda this evening is an update from Mrs. Delaney. So come on down. I wish it were. That'd be so much more fun. Hi.
Well, good evening, everybody. Excited to share an update. When I was here last time, it was September, and we were all kind of figuring out life in the Little Land. So now we have some more exciting things to share. Hopefully this will work. Okay. Just updating on the demographics of our school. I tried to give a comparison. Right now we have 17 preschoolers, so we have one opening. If anybody is looking for preschool for this year, we have one opening. We currently have 640 students. I think we're still enrolling more. The SK Hicks has definitely brought some new enrollment for us. Lots of third graders are coming our way. It's interesting that that's the grade level. I'm sure that number is going to increase. So from this time to September, we've increased 17 students over that time. Free and reduced lunch is still at 24.7. We'll get the updated data next year. And then overall, our special education, we currently have 97 students who've been identified in special education, and that includes just students who have speech-only IEPs, and that's an increase of 18 students. So that's an increase of 2% of our student population, with several more who are in the evaluation process. So that's just something that tends to happen with our little kiddos. We're uncovering the onions and seeing what they need. The staffing has stayed the same, just some great pictures there. We have Miss Mary Kay. If you ever come to our school and you need some love, Miss Mary Kay, I won't say short because I'm short too, but she's short. She's our short lunch supervisor. She would love to have a couple friends. We're still hiring, so 2 more lunch supervisors to join Miss Mary Kay. Just an update, just kind of how things are looking for standardized testing that kind of goes and shows in the numbers of what our school is looking like. The iRead 3 testing, again, that's the mandatory reading foundations assessment. This year, all of our second graders will take it, and then we have 46 third graders who either took it last year and did not pass as a second grader or have never taken it because they're new to Indiana or new to the United States, which several of our students will come. They will be here for 2 days, and then we'll be expected to take the iRead, so we'll see how they do with that. So we currently have very targeted supports through Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention if students are needing that. And then we've also used our IXL program to do some different benchmarking assessments just to see how the kids are doing, just being on track to pass that assessment and to look at, just give them a better understanding of what that test is going to look like, just to prepare them for that. And we also have just some test prep groups, just helping them to understand how to attack a test like this. And then we do have our iLearn checkpoints, and again, that's for third grade only. The iLearn checkpoints are new mandated this year. Last year they were optional. We did do those last year. Mrs. Pizarros has also shared her results. We've completed checkpoint 1 and checkpoint 2, and again, each checkpoint is covering different standards, so you really can't compare checkpoint 1 data to checkpoint 2 data because it's different standards. But so far, we've hovered between the 60 and 70th percent of our students are passing in ELA, and then our math, they're performing a little bit better in, with 82% in the first checkpoint, and then 78% proficient in the second. The second one, that's multiplication, division, and fraction, so we were really excited to see them doing so well there. The iLearn checkpoints do help plan interventions because it's real-time data. As soon as the students take it, the teachers see that data right away and see how the students are performing on the standards and then can plan instruction. So it's a little bit different than the iLearn summative where we don't get the results until the summer. I wanted to share a little bit more. Last time I was here, we were talking about some changes that we had made in special education, and we were talking about some supports that we were seeing that we needed to put in place just based on student need right off the bat. And so I wanted to just share kind of how those things are going. So first of all, just taking a broad picture of MTSS, or the multi-tiered system of support within our school. So we have classroom interventions that are happening every day, all throughout the day. We have some amazing reading interventionists and a math interventionist for Tier 3 supports, and they also help guide Tier 2 interventions. We have our student support team, which some of them are here with us tonight. We have our English learner team, and then we also have our special education team. So all of this is to focus on prevention and skill building in whatever skill deficit that may be, whether it's academic or behavioral or social emotional. And so we're really looking at those individualized supports. And some of the hallmarks of these are strong collaborations between the classroom teachers, administrators, and our supporting staff, as well as families, which we had just wrapped up and are kind of rescheduling thanks to all the snow days and 2-hour delays. Kind of mixed up our parent meeting schedules, but those were always a good time to connect with families. So wanting to share an update with our structured learning classroom with Mrs. Van Dyke. This is a self-contained special education classroom. She currently has 9 students that are with her. This is something where Mrs. Van Dyke really sought out her own training just to kind of see what she could do to help meet the needs of our students who were coming from ABA centers or who were just needing more of a focused, structured environment. She currently has 2 of her students who have already kind of ramped up in their abilities to take their structured learning supports and transition that into the gen ed classroom. 2 of our students are spending half of their day in their gen ed classroom, which is very fun to see, with 4 more students increasing their time throughout the day. They also have an adaptive PE or adaptive special area schedule, so our special area teachers have kind of revamped their curriculum to make it a little bit more accessible for our students. We're doing very well, again, with transitioning across different locations and situations, the cafeteria, recess, specials, those types of things. And of course, all of the decisions are based on student readiness, their regulation skills, and just their skill development. But we're seeing lots of support there, and you can see those are some pictures from her classroom. And then something we wanted to toot our own little horn about. We have something that we put into place called the Sunshine Room, and I have our 2 lovely ladies back here. So we have Mary Dixon Gibbs. She's our RBT, the Registered Behavior Technician, and then Haley Sanchez is our Student Support Specialist, and Mrs. Laney is our Assistant Principal as well. This is our student support team, along with lots of paraprofessionals, special education teachers, and our school counselor. But they are the ones who call the Sunshine Room home. And so you can see it has a sun. The name came organically. What we saw was that many of our students were coming and starting out this year, not only our kindergartners, as we kind of started out with like, oh, we need to support these kindergartners. Then we started looking beyond our littlest of little kids and seeing that really were some skill gaps in emotional regulation, behavior support, social skills. And it was looking at how do we support this so it's not just crisis handling and consequences and happening in the moment and moving towards more proactive things. So what we've created here in this room, actually they have created this. We have supported them, they have created this. Is really looking at skills and supports embedded across the classrooms, lunch, recess, small group training. We developed this in September. We had our first PD day, and I think we whipped it together in about 2 days' time and then put it into action. And that was their doing along with collaboration from the staff. I mean, our entire staff jumped on board and just kind of ran with it. So that's been the exciting thing, I think, to see as a whole staff. Again, looking at those skill gaps with social, emotional, and behaviors. And one thing that we've really been focusing on is school-wide language, so that a student who's in Mrs. Smith's 2nd grade class and then goes to Mrs. Wilson for art and then goes to Mrs. Nice for PE and then gets on the bus and then goes to the cafeteria, that they have clear common expectations and common language, because that can be very different if you see 8 adults and you have 8 different sets of rules. So that's been one of our focus points for this. So here's just some numbers. And all of these, I'm going to say we're lowballing because not everything can be tracked on a computer screen as we're going through the day. So since October 1st, when we started a data tracking system, we've had 829 documented student visits to the Sunshine Room. They do have scheduled skill groups. So there's usually 3 to 4 students per group, usually 4 days a week. On average, 15 students a day are stopping in for structured times in the Sunshine Room. And then throughout the day, they're touching points with students, breakfast, hallways, check-in, check-out, so 44 student interactions per day. Overall, of the data we were able to connect, 77% of their interactions were proactive, where when we started, everything was very reactive. A student was having crisis, we jumped in to help. So now we've been able to shift. The majority of our time is proactive. And again, like we said, the figures don't necessarily account for being able to sit at a computer and log it. But I think this is a very good representation of what our day-to-day sunshine room looks like. Some things that we're hoping or that we're seeing that's positive and then kind of plans for the future. We're seeing increased coping skills and shared language school-wide. It's been kind of fun after winter break. I think we all cautiously were like, things feel like calmer. Did they feel calmer to you? I don't know. Nobody wanted to say it out loud, but it felt good. And some of our students who really struggled, you can see them thinking through the process and planning in their head what their reaction is instead of being in crisis mode. So even if they do get to the point where they're not quite able to calm themselves, the length of time it takes to get back to baseline is much shorter, much fewer disruptions to the classroom setting, and much fewer disruptions for their own learning. So that's a very positive thing. We're continuing to expand our staff training and consistency, kind of giving teachers some tools to add to their toolbox. The next piece is also monitoring transitions back into general education. We have some students who would spend their entire day with these lovely ladies if they could. But we're trying to get them back into their gen ed setting, so helping them to transition, that's another goal. And then again, strengthening our partnerships with families and our outside providers. I mentioned we had an increase in our students with special education identifications. We've also been able to increase the number of students who are getting outside therapy, outside counseling, having those connections. So I think that's been a fantastic piece that families are trusting us to be able to help them to get those outside things that we can't provide here at school. So again, I will wrap that up, but I would love to hear questions and
That sounds amazing. As someone with a background in special ed, I'm really excited about the proactivity of it, and that I'm just blown away. So thank you for all your work on that. Rachel?
So with the increase in this population, particularly coming in with our newest neighbors, are you seeing that a disproportionate increase in English language learners coming in? Are you seeing good English skills? What does that look like? And I guess my question is, are you going to continue to be able to meet need on that with your current staff?
as of right now, I think we're looking good. Because we started the year with fewer EL students than what we typically would. So now it's kind of, we've balanced back out. And a lot of the students that were coming in, they have had some English instruction before. So they're coming in with some of the basic skills. And actually one of the kiddos came into day one and already made a slew of friends, and it was going well. But I appreciate asking.
Yeah. So I saw all the testing and I understand that that is what you need to do. But my question is really if you're able to maintain or meet those intervention minutes during the testing, and also time in the sunshine room if needed. Are you able to still hit those marks okay?
As far as, say that again for me.
When you have to do the testing, right? Yes. And then students get extended time in testing, which I assume takes staff resources to do that. And then are you still able to meet their minutes?
We can. So a lot of times what we're looking at is it's very carefully strategizing when we're testing, how long we're testing. And now all of the testing, none of it's timed. So we can all take as long as we would like.
Nice.
So that is something that we do take into account, especially when we're looking at special education minutes. We do try to stay out of our intervention time. It's called win time. And that's when a lot of our students are being pulled for those targeted tier 2 and tier 3 interventions.
I love seeing the stuff in Mrs. Van Dyke's room. Has the pace of students coming in from ABA centers slowed or still continuing to come in?
It's slowed. We did have one student move in, but he had already kind of been in our family before, so we knew about him. I think they just had some things happen. Again, more insurance and
Right.
those things that are beyond their control. But right now, I feel like we have a really solid crew of kids, and so they've gotten with the flow of the room and with the strategies and routines. So now that's when we're seeing them get to head out.
It's awesome. And one last thing I will say, Ms. Gibbs, I have a 20-year-old in college who would tell you that a core memory is when she shared her raspberries with her. So, so I just want to say, I love seeing that crew there in line, and they are such a gift to our students. Thank you for that.
100%.
And that's why I had to say something.
David, you had something.
Rachel said part of what I wanted to ask, which is great. It set me up for the rest of it.
All right, yeah.
With 20 to 30 or so percent, maybe a little more than 30, not yet at proficiency across math and reading, I imagine that's not it fully overlapping. So it's probably closer to 40, 45% of kids that aren't yet meeting benchmarks or proficiency levels. That does create a large need for intervention at various tiers. Are there resources or other supports that would make that more efficient and effective for you that you can think about that could be brought in over the next year or two?
I think if money were not an object, absolutely. I think we have 3 fantastic reading interventionists. We have 1 math interventionist, and so she's spread very thin. So I think that's an area that we're constantly looking at, like, how do we juggle getting the kids into intervention without pulling them from different things? And you're exactly right. A lot of the students who need reading intervention also need math intervention, and we have 1 intervention block. So then it is like that, like Jenga game of how do we get all this accomplished without pulling them from direct instruction as well. So more hours in the day, more money, that'd be great. You know.
See what I can do about that
Okay.
genie in the lamp. Anybody else? Okay, great. Thank you so very much. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Mrs. Delaney.
The next item on the agenda is a technology update from Mr. Hamilton.
Okay, thank you. So since the last time I was up here, we've only had 1 employee turnover, thankfully. So we brought in Sam back in April. He is at the junior senior high school. He's a technology specialist. He's been doing a great job for us. He primarily works on the one-to-one Chromebook management for the school, as well as taking care of the teacher classrooms and other various things around the building, obviously. So Chromebooks, one thing I did want to note is we are up to about 800 Chromebooks, just over 800 Chromebooks that we loan out to families. That's up about 100 devices over the previous year, and then a little up from the previous year before. So that's kind of trending upward, which we knew was going to happen with the change in state fees. More families, as they come in 7th grade, they're choosing to take that school loaned option. Thankfully, the break rate hasn't changed much. The accidental damage claims are staying pretty much even, although I will say it was skewed at the start of the year. We kept seeing a lot of screen breaks, a lot of drops, but thankfully they got it under control. And that's slowed down, which is nice. And then with the Chromebooks too, we've had the opportunity to have a work-based learning student with us. We're piloting that this year. And so a big part of their job is when they come work with us, they can work on some of the older Chromebooks and sort of do some troubleshooting, find what's not working, and make, one good working Chromebook out of 3 old ones. So a lot of stuff like that. So it's somewhat monotonous, but we do sprinkle in some other tasks for them to keep it interesting. And that's been nice. I think 1 student per semester right now is probably the sweet spot. So we'll see. As long as there's student interest, we'll keep that going. That's been fun. And a great opportunity for them. Last year we piloted the attendance automated notifications. So this is the auto dialer that, if there's no absence recorded or no parent call in, it notifies the parents. So that's been working beautifully. A lot of the automated stuff, it usually just takes a little bit of tweaking from year to year. If there's state changes or local changes, we just kind of adjust some parameters, keep those things going. So this is just some reports from this year, 1.1 to 2.6 so far. The WebEx migration, I know last time I had a timeline of how we're going to roll that out and make all that work. Happy to report that all that is up and running, more complete. All the buildings are using the new WebEx platform. And we're excited about, a lot of the flexibility that affords us. And when things don't go great, say there's a need for evacuation, we have some flexibility with WebEx that's going to make, reunification, contacting people so much easier and faster. So a lot of safety aspects with this that we're excited about. This summer, we did switch our copier fleet, so we switched to Toshiba, and we had to upgrade our server software for that. So we have some new features along with that. So there's a follow me print queue, so our staff can scan their badge at the copier. As long as they print their job to that follow me queue, they can go to any copier, any building, print that job. So it just follows them around wherever they go. A lot of you are probably familiar with that from colleges. A lot of them have that type of software, so that's been great. We've heard a lot of good reports, so that's been a good addition for us. So that was a big project this summer, as well as some server migration. And so some of the E-rate projects that I talked about last year, we did just finally get into finishing those up. So the wireless controllers that we replaced, and then the 165 access points, and that was from the E-rate funding from the 2020-25 segment there, where we had that money allocated. So we were able to finish up that pool of money for 2025, and then we got those projects done. So that's all I had on this question.
Okay, Rachel, go ahead.
With copy machines, are you seeing use stay pretty level? Or is
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it's just pretty consistently staying the same?
And the great thing now too is we have that reporting. If we do run into an issue where we need to track something, we have better reporting now.
Awesome, thank you.
George?
It's okay if you don't know the answer right now, but there's some legislation pending at the State House to require schools to allow parents to control the internet filters on the Chromebooks they bring home. Is our filter already capable of that, or will we need a new one?
So we can implement some after-school rules. So we have a lot of flexibility with the current Lightspeed software. There is, I know it was being piloted last year in terms of adding parental controls. So, but it does depend. I mean, if the parent is choosing the school-issued option, they're going to have more, control over that and reporting from the Lightspeed filtering. Whereas if they don't, then they're kind of the admin of that device, and it's kind of on them, right? So, but yes, we will have flexibility if things change.
Yeah, the legislation was about school-owned devices. So yeah, I mean, I think even the folks down in Indianapolis know that if the school doesn't control it, there's nothing we can do. I just wanted to see how ready we were.
Okay. Good question.
Okay, anybody else? No? Super, thank you so much. Excuse me, the next item on our agenda is communication from the audience, and we have two folks sign up. The first one is Carissa Bartholomew. We'll have 3 minutes, and I even remembered to bring up a timer on my phone, which is a first, so.
Great, let's hope I was at 2:59.
All right. Okay.
Okay, in attendance with me tonight are some members of the homeschooling community in the greater Lafayette area. Our family belongs to that community, and we also belong to the West Lafayette community. We love West Lafayette, and we've chosen educational flexibility for our family at the same time. We see a need within our community for a thriving relationship to develop between the school corporation and the resident families who choose educational flexibility. There's opportunity for the school district to help meet the educational needs of more students by offering their services to every resident student, including non-traditional students. Under the school's current policy, a resident student who is being educated at a homeschool may enroll in one or more academic courses. Our family has been given mixed messages about this policy, and we've learned from other homeschooling families that they've hit many barriers when trying to cooperate with the West Lafayette School District. I believe that our policy should inform our practice, so I would like to ask you to consider not only maintaining and implementing that policy, but also celebrating it as a bridge to connect as many resident students to our schools as possible. Because the state doesn't require schools to allow part-time enrollment, this is an opportunity for the school to make the community aware of the way that it values each student in its district. This district falls behind other local school districts when it comes to this issue. LSC accepts part-time enrollment of in-district students. TSC allows part-time enrollment, including out-of-district students. And some even allow these students to participate in extracurricular activities, which my boys would like you to know is something you should also consider. The district could benefit financially from part-time enrollments. Currently, the funding that would be associated with my children goes untouched. According to my understanding, schools do receive funding for part-time students, so there's money being left on the table there. There shouldn't be much burden in making room for a few part-time students and adding extra names to class lists. Based on my understanding, the school isn't exceeding capacity, and there's a desire for growth in enrollment. There are students within the district who are eligible for and are seeking educational opportunities. Part-time public school enrollment, however, is not something that would meet the educational goals of every homeschool family in the district, but I still believe the benefits for the district and the families greatly outweigh the burden on the school. So with enrollment options at other school districts, why don't we just find educational opportunities for our children elsewhere? This is the part where I might get emotional. We're West Lafayette residents. We've raised our children in this community and developed relationships in this community. Our children have played baseball and have become friends with many of your own children. We wish to support our community and do life in our community. Time's up. Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. All right, the next item is Kimberly Lundgren. Welcome.
I'm back. Get rid of me. He wants to, yeah, here we go. All right. After reading Dr. Greiner's update on the upcoming proposed referendum, as well as transfer policy, I would like to focus my comments on the success of the school district in focusing on passing the referendum and including transfer students to ensure the short-term financial viability of programs while creating policies that prioritize and provide for the long-term health of West Lafayette School District. Given my 3-minute limit, my comments are direct, but please accept them as an educator and school community member wanting to champion the school. I believe if residents believe the sacrifices they have made to live in district are being acknowledged, recognized, and safeguarded by the school board, there will be a high willingness to pass the referendum. Please allow me to highlight some portions of the first reading of the policy that do not currently address those or acknowledge those sacrifices nor prioritize the long-term health of the school district, as well as some alternatives to those. In order to preserve the value of living in district and recognize the choices that current residents make to prioritize education in their families, having a transfer policy that gives priority to anyone other than transfer students that have already been admitted is insufficient. To preserve the value of living in district, there must be significant risk to admittance for those choosing to live out of district. My suggestions from previous experience in previous school districts are: 1, a true lottery system for everyone other than already admitted students. 2, lottery should be open to and advertised to all school districts in the region, if not the state, widening the pool and creating more demand, thus more uncertainty of admittance. 3, lottery should not give priority to siblings. As a personal note, we have 7 children and have lived in 7 school systems over the years, with different children attending different school districts at different times simultaneously. Parents that care enough about the education of their students to apply for another district and provide transportation are the same parents that will find a way to meet the needs of all of their children. The only assurance that all of your kids can be in the same school system should be that you live in and pay taxes towards it. Full stop. Lottery should not give priority to students that were in district and have subsequently moved out of district. We know personally several families that is their plan to move out of district once kids make it to mid-elementary and then transfer in to save on taxes. The argument I have read from the summaries of out-of-district transfers is that it is difficult to find a home in district. That is true, but in the end, it's about priorities. Homes for sale exist. They mostly aren't the experience many of us desire or are accustomed to. Those who prioritize education over housing, with which also come the expectation of paying higher taxes to support that education, as these families have noted, should expect that their school board will recognize that choice, priority, and sacrifice. The importance of this policy focuses on the long-term financial viability of the district by increasing in-district enrollment and building a strong pro-school voting environment. To review, a true lottery policy from the onset, open to all students in the region that does not give priority to siblings of current students, nor those who have started in West Lafayette and then want to come back, helps increase the risk of acceptance as well as underlying equity in the admin system. Thank you so much.
Good job. Thank you. If I would ask that both of you, since you are forced to talk so quickly, if you could email your comments to the board, it would give me a chance to digest a little better, and I would really appreciate that. And the website includes the email address that goes to everybody. So thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
There are motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. All right. I didn't start the buttons because I was listening. There we go. There's the vote. One more. Is it me? No?
I pushed it. It doesn't,
Is it not pushing? Uh-oh.
nope, it doesn't allow me.
Uh-oh. Well, you pushed yes?
There I am.
There you are. Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
All right. Thank you very much. The next item we have is unfinished business. And seeing none, we will move on to new business. And Dr. Greiner.
Thank you, Mrs. Austin. As we discuss potential early referendum renewal, we know it's important that the board understands community perspectives, so we want to have strong, proven communication strategies in place. If we seek early renewal, we know that we're going to need to discuss the rate for one thing, and we want to make sure that we are making up for the lost revenue due to the results of Senate Bill 1. We know that from Mr. Reuter that to make up for those losses alone, by 2031, the rate would need to be at approximately 0.5515. And we know then if we were to fully keep all things equal, that we'd need to consider the homestead credit that's going into effect too, which could take it to approximately 5.280. And these are numbers Mr. Reuter has begun discussing with us. And it's also important to note that he continues to discuss that we're talking about keeping things the same as opposed to asking for more funding. And we've not had to talk rate increases in the past because the changes to the numbers that go into effect because of Senate Bill 1 have not been an issue in the past. And so revenue looks different because of the different credits and so forth. And so the rate changes, that doesn't mean the amount is changing, but that communication is going to be critical. It's going to be important that we're having multiple meetings as well as surveying and so forth to understand the sentiment of the community and understand how to effectively communicate. So to support our pre-referendum and potential referendum work, we are recommending the same team that we had in place in 2023, which was a successful referendum at over 80% approval rating from our community. Daler PR was a key member of that team, and they were our communications team. And they helped us provide consistent messaging as well as address community questions throughout that process. At this time, I'd like to introduce Jeff Daler with Daler PR, and he has Dave Beering with him. And they're going to discuss the plan or the proposal that we've put in your packet. Once they've presented that information, they want to entertain questions from the board. If the board is comfortable, we would like to propose that the board vote on granting permission to engage with Daler PR again. So Jeff, if you would, please.
Thank you, Dr. Greiner, and thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'm Jeff Daler with Daler PR, and with me is Dave Beery. Appreciate seeing you again. Good to be back. I hated starting with this big thing, but Daler PR is who we are, but here we are. It's like too much of an ad, so let's move on. And I'm going to go pretty quickly through this slide deck because there's a lot of information here, but you do have it in your packet, in your board packet, and so you have the opportunity to read it at your leisure if you need something to put you to sleep tonight. So starting with who we are, we're a mission-driven organization. Our strategic plan for Daler PR is that we improve communities through exceptional public relations, marketing, and strategic counsel. So the improve communities piece is important to us. Most of our work is done in the public sector, and a vast amount of that work is done in public schools. our niche is public schools. Most of us have worked in public schools in the past, and now we have done, since we started Daler PR in 2011, we've done tons of additional work for public education. Our approach, this is one of the things you can read at home later on and put yourself to sleep. But our approach is is based in research. We do some research first to be able to develop a plan, then we implement the plan. And one of the things that I think Dave can probably relate to is that when we were communications directors in school corporations, sometimes people would come to us and they would say, "Hey, can you help me put a brochure together?" And I would say, "Yes, but who's your audience? And is a brochure the right way to reach that audience? And is the message that you want them, to send, is that the best delivered in a brochure?" And so let's do some research. Let's learn more first about your audiences, and then move forward from there. And this is nothing new or innovative. This is from the National School Public Relations Association and the Public Relations Society of America. This is the standard from which we operate. But many people don't follow the standard, and they start on step 3, implementation. We want to start earlier than that. And so that's where, as Dr. Greiner says, some research, some surveying, some community engagement is important. This is our team that is available to you to help you. And so let's get into what are we thinking here. I loved that Mrs. Witt talked about an impact that a teacher had on her student that resonated for years. That is a story. You have a story to tell, and Dr. Greiner was telling some of it now. Since 2023, when you renewed the operating levy, when voters renewed that operating levy, things have changed. The story to tell is that the same tax rate does not bring in the same amount of money to your school district any further, which is a weird impact of SEA 1, and something that's going to be very confusing to the public. And to try to communicate that effectively will take some time and some effort. And so the rest of this situation analysis includes things like, good news, you've had great success at the polls in the past, but it's going to be a challenge to do a tax increase, the first one since 2010. You've been able to use the same rate for all these years, and that has been strongly supported by your community. How will people think about a little bit more? So building trust in your community through transparency and accountability is something that the board has been very working hard on, making certain that people feel like the board is listening to the community. So when we look at this situation, we say, let's do 2 things. Let's start with some community engagement so that when the board decides to put a question on the ballot, you've had a lot of input from community members first, and you've been able to take that input and create a ballot question that works for people in your community. And then let's make sure that people know about it so that they can make an informed decision at the polls in November. So what does community engagement look like? And Dave, please chime in when I make a mistake. So the goal here is to introduce the situation first. So that's why we put the situation analysis at the beginning. Is you got the story to tell. We want to make sure that people hear that story and why things have changed, how things have changed, what the impact is on students and on the community. And then we want to make sure that we get feedback from people so that we can utilize that feedback in putting together a plan that works.
In the plan that we have, objective evidence is more likely than not to win support in November.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we think about objective evidence, I'm going to, looking at what questions are we trying to answer here, I'm going to skip ahead to the next slide, which is we really love to have, if you can afford to do this, a public opinion survey by an independent research firm that allows you to have a statistically valid result that you can extrapolate from the people that the firm talks to. You can extrapolate across the entire universe of your community that this is in fact how people feel. So this is what Dave is talking about, is data. But I'm going back to Mrs. Witt again, because people make their mind up based sometimes on data, but based sometimes on the story that you tell and the emotional pull that you get from that story. So it's about the data, but it's also about the impact to students. How will an increase in the rate impact students? Will this impact classroom sizes? Will this impact the number of teachers that you have, the number of programs that you can offer? And when you can tell stories about the value of the programs that you offer today and say that, to be honest, if we remain at the same level of funding, we're probably not going to be able to continue to, or I should say the same rate, but meaning a reduced level of funding, we're probably not going to be able to continue to support those programs that we're supporting now.
And while it's not our preference in terms of messaging to put a fear factor in, we do think it's very important that people really understand in the most objective way possible what failure to pass a referendum, failure to maintain a certain level of revenue means. And in this case, the SEA is, I mean, you're immersed in it, you know all about it, but it's, unless you're a legislative junkie, most people don't. And so a lot of our messaging and communication is going to be explaining what that means and how that relates in real terms into the educational opportunities in West Lafayette.
Yeah, I think it's the situation is the story to tell, but then also it is the impact of a yes vote and the impact of a no vote. Here's what happens if you vote yes. Here's what happens if you vote no. Community engagement really is getting to different groups of people. And so it's meeting with staff, it's meeting with opinion leaders within the community. It's having some kind of a task force or advisory committee that looks deeply at the information that Mr. Reuter has provided and others, Mrs. Kronk, and really internalizing that so that they become kind of proxy ambassadors for the school district, because they have internalized all of the statistics and facts about your situation. Of course, meeting with parents and guardians, meeting with community members, even having the superintendent go to the senior center, go to various community groups and service clubs and that sort of thing. Going to where the people are it's just easier to be able to get the message out than asking them to come to you. We're still going to ask people to come to us, but also go where the people are. And of course, communicating throughout this whole period through the current channels that you're communicating with currently. When do we do this? We want to, the board is going to have to make a decision in the May, June, July timeframe, somewhere in there, about what that ballot question looks like. So we really want to take advantage of the time when students are in school and parents are still engaged. And so between now and May, let's make sure that we get in front of staff, students, parents, et cetera. Then we get into, after the board makes its decision, the referendum marketing, and yet actually, we'll see this in the timeline in a minute, the timelines overlap. So I'll talk about that in just a moment. The goal here for referendum marketing, as we were just saying, is really it's to make sure that we're communicating what happens if you vote yes and what happens if you vote no. People need to be informed to make an informed decision when they reach the polls. So the strategy for being able to reach people is to provide, from the school district's perspective, factual, unbiased information to all residents, building on the tradition of transparency that you are modeling today. We want people to look at the school corporation as the go-to source for facts, because there will be others who will be advocating for or against the question. If people have questions about things that they're hearing or seeing in the community, we want them to come to the school district, knowing that the school district is not advocating for or against it, that it is, especially because it's not allowed by law after you vote for the ballot question, look to the school district for facts. But we also know that there needs to be an advocacy group. And so we want there to be a political action committee. And so we will help to advise a political action committee as it comes about. The scope here again begins in research, but a lot of the research really is done in that pre-referendum community engagement phase. And so we can start to put a plan together more quickly because of the community engagement work up front. And then again, implementation through all of the things that you usually do, but we do some more things, some direct mail pieces, some videos, some other methods of being able to reach people to ensure that everyone is getting some information. This is the overlap part. While the community engagement segment may go through June, we're going to start the research and planning and creating a theme and a logo and messaging around a referendum marketing campaign prior to the decision that's being made by the board, filling in the blanks as soon as the board has finalized that ballot language so that you know what you're asking for and what the priorities would be on how to spend referendum dollars. And from there, then it's a marketing campaign. It's getting information out in front of people. And I think that when we think about the political action committee, but also we think about the role of the ambassadors of the school district, discussions are what wins referendums. So that can be from the political action committee's perspective. That's phone banking and going to school events and community events and sharing information and talking to people. But really that's a role that any of us here can take. And I think that it's really important, and we'll talk in a minute about the school board's role, but that's one of the things that school board members can do is when people ask you questions about the referendum, we want you to have the facts and to have the talking points to make sure that you are able to share information with your constituents. Again, facts are what the school district is hiring us to produce. The PAC, in fact, in the last referendum, we kind of threw in advising of the PAC as a pro bono service of Daler PR. This is going to be a little more challenging. There's going to be some extra stuff here. There's some extra what I would consider strategies that the PAC can use that will cost it some money, and that we're going to work with the PAC to help to raise a little bit more money to be able to pay for some of those strategies. But still, we're going to provide a lot of pro bono help to the political action committee. We want to help them with key message development. We want to help them with yes voter identification and getting out the vote. But their job is to identify yes voters and get them to the polls. Their proposed timeline is to start in May. We need to form a political action committee early so that they have the opportunity to kind of build their network, their leadership structure first, and then over the summertime get all the things, all the pieces in place so that they can really hit things hard once school starts at the beginning of August, basically. So I think that's probably that. There are some things that we would recommend, not included. We don't do, we do some survey work. We do some what I would call, informal surveys and engagement like focus groups and that sort of thing. but we really think that you should contract separately with a community opinion survey company like you did in 2023. Video production is a powerful way of telling messages. That can be testimonials, and that can be showing things in schools that people are benefiting from as a result of
Sunshine rooms.
Yeah, sunshine rooms, exactly. Yes. And then the last thing is the political action committee purchasing a ranked voter file. So staff at the school corporation play a critical role in just helping us know who the people are and getting in front of the people. So there's a list of things, and it's, as Dr. Greiner knows, it's a lot of work. It's at the end of a referendum campaign. That's when Dr. Greiner does something nice for his family because he hasn't seen them for a while. And then for the board, you all play a critical role too. First of all, we will assume that the board will have decided at the end that yes, in fact, we do want to put a question on the ballot. And so then we want you to be visible in your support for the referendum. One of the things that's really valuable is that you have networks of people that you hang out with that maybe Dr. Greiner or Mrs. Roth don't hang out with. When you're hearing things from the community, please pass that on, because it's going to be really powerful for Dr. Greiner to be able to work with us to develop messages that we can get back to those communities to answer questions and make sure that people are informed. There's always going to be things that we missed in our preparation, and all of a sudden people have questions and they become frequently asked questions. And so we keep that list of frequently asked questions updated and make sure that that we communicate those out. You can obviously take the role of sharing informational messages, but you are able to take off your board hat and put on your community hat and volunteer on the political action committee. That is a leading by example thing. We want for district staff to see that your board is engaged in their support. And so that makes staff, that makes parents, that makes community members say, okay, if it's important to the board, then it must be important, and I better be a part of this. Obviously, when Dr. Greiner is giving a presentation at the community center, it would be great to have one of you there with him. Same with other presentations and meetings. So we think that you guys get to play a critical role here. And so we thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, we'd be happy to take them.
Thank you very much. Questions, Rachel?
Thank you. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
I just have a couple of questions. One, is there any scenario, I know the word PAC is thrown around a lot. Is there any scenario in which we are successful running a referendum without a PAC?
It can happen and has. We've worked on referendums where we were not able to get a political action committee going. And it is hard sometimes to get people engaged. It's been harder since the pandemic to get people engaged in volunteering for almost anything. It is a great benefit to have advocates on your side. One real simple example is that we all know that social media is a popular way to communicate now. And when the school district says, hey, we're having a referendum and here's some information about it, and somebody puts up a message that says, I'm opposed because of this, the school district can answer that. But it's powerful to have a third-party voice that is not affiliated with the school district to send that same message, because as I'm sure that you all know this, that voice brings this different level of credibility that can help people to say, okay, if my neighbor can support this, then maybe I can too. So it's a great question. It's also a challenge to put them together, to get people to volunteer to do this work. It's a lot of work.
It is, I agree. Another question, we have board positions open at this same election, and we do have a history in this community of some somewhat exciting board member elections. And so I'm interested in the impact of that kind of unpleasant component. Like, what would be the impact on a referendum if we were to have one of those contentious
Yeah.
member elections?
Have you experienced that?
Candidates who are actively opposed in particular and are working to build a constituency around that. Probably have more direct experience with that than I have. I think more than anything else, we stay on message and try not to be distracted. I don't want to call it white noise because it's more significant than that. But I think the discipline is staying on message and continuing to communicate why this matters, what the benefit is, what it means not to. I think that's probably still the key.
It is, and there's a downside to the legislation from the state that has put referendums only in general elections. On the one hand, it's good, you get more voter participation. On the other hand, there are so many other things on the ballot that it becomes so much noise that it's very difficult for the school corporation to get its message out and for the political action committee to get its message out when there are state representatives who are running, when there are local school board or city races, when there are national elections, congressional elections. There's just a lot of stuff going on. So getting the message out is more challenging for school board members who are running for school or for any candidate who's running for school board. One of the things that I would recommend is candidates separate themselves from the political action committee, and candidates for school board run their races, the PAC runs its race. So I don't want to, I hate to take away the potential of anyone advocating, and yet at the same time, I don't want this to become, as Dave was describing, an issue that is defining those candidates, and so I'm voting for somebody who's against the thing, and it becomes an issue in that part of the race. That would be challenging because it's difficult to pull them apart. So I would recommend that anyone from this board that's running, or anybody who's a candidate not on this board currently who might be running for a school board, to not be part of the political action committee.
Thank you. That's helpful. Appreciate it.
George?
Couple things. One, did we send you the backwards WL or did it get reversed somehow?
I missed that in the thing. I'm gonna have to look for that.
Bottom right-hand corner of every page. Serious question though.
That's kind of serious though. I'm all about branding, and that.
In your travels with the work you do, have you come across a whole lot of other school corporations and school districts that are confronting a similar problem this year? And if so, how many?
I was just meeting with the former executive director of the Indiana School Public Relations Association, Donna Petre, and she and I got together for coffee, and she says that she thinks there might be 100 referendums this fall.
Wow.
Now, I don't know if it's gonna get that big. There's 280 some school districts in the state of Indiana. To have almost half of them or a third of them run a referendum, that's a lot. It's possible. The legislation from SCA 1 is a serious blow to finances and school corporations across the state. What are the advantages and disadvantages of going out for a referendum in 2026? This is going to be huge news statewide, where schools are telling their stories of the impact of SCA 1 across the state. And so this is a little bit of kind of riding the wave of everybody else is also in the same boat. I think that it does make sense to be a part of that because it will break through some of the other messaging that's coming from congressional candidates and state house representatives and all the other candidates. And so it's yes, you're not unique here in West Lafayette. This is definitely happening across the state.
You, go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much for the presentations, very helpful. I have a kind of follow-up question to the earlier discussion about the timing. And so right now we can only run the referendum during the election, the general election year. So I wonder, based on your experience, how much that will impact the passing rate. For example, last time when we ran it in 23, and we have about 80% passing rate. And I wonder, based on your experience, typically when schools run it during this general election, will the rate go up or goes down in general? That's my first question. I have more.
Yeah. Let me start with the first one. You make a great point, which is that we will see probably 60 to 70, maybe even 75% voter turnout in a general election. That's a lot different than in a special election like in 2023. I do not remember the percentage voter turnout, but it's typically in the 30–40% range. It's a lot less. So what does that do to the support? Would you expect 80% voting yes in a general election? Probably not. Probably a lot smaller. Now, am I worried about West Lafayette? I'm not too worried because this is a community that has shown its support over many elections, 2010, 17, 23, with great levels of support. 80-20, 70-30, whatever. It's been very positive. You have a strong supportive community. The higher the voter turnout, the less likely it is that you're going to achieve that same amount of support. When you run a special election, you're likely to have sort of voters who are very committed in one way or the other. And then you probably are missing some of the voters who are in the middle who maybe just don't have a strong opinion. In a general election, all of them show up. And so which way did those middle voters swing is a question mark. So this is where the strategies of communication become so much different in a general election than they are in a special election. In the special election, especially the Political Action Committee can really focus on turning out the yes voters. We're knowing that we're going to have a lot higher turnout. We're going to have to do a better job of educating a much broader segment of the community. So it's a much different kind of election. And so you make a very good point about who do we reach and what can we expect.
The other significant variable, I think, besides being a general election is we're asking for a rate increase, which has not been the case before. And so that's in and of itself is going to.
So you're talking to the microphone.
It's not, we're talking, the other variable this time is that we're talking about a rate increase as opposed to the same rate. And we're, this is what we do. We're sort of going to explain to people that we're not going to authorize the entire rate all at the same, immediately. And that's just something that would occur over time. But that is a little different question for voters. And in all honesty, I would expect some erosion of support, yes, voters just for that fact alone. I don't know how much. I mean, I don't have any kind of data on what that means. I still have a high degree of confidence that this is a referendum that we can win. But in addition to the general election, that's another factor.
And another question I have is related to our current discussion in the district. I'm not sure whether, probably from the previous speaker, you learn a little bit about whether we open the district to transfer students. And so based on my observation, and last time when we talked about a referendum, so I observe overwhelming support to that. And but this time, because this open district discussion, I saw more resistance and reluctance, and people felt, oh, if everybody can study here, why do we have to pay higher tax? So that's just based on my limited observation. I wonder whether you happen to have experience about with this combination of open district and increased referendum, and will that impact people's willingness to vote yes?
Yeah.
Thanks.
No, absolutely. You make, again, a very good point. And sometimes we don't know the answers to these questions other than we have an anecdotal understanding. And that's what the research up front will help us with, is that we have an opportunity through conducting a community opinion survey and through other community engagement strategies to learn more about what is the impact on transfer students. Is there is there a likelihood, a stronger likelihood of voting yes or voting no? One of the questions that we ask in community opinion surveys is around, are you more likely to vote yes if we were to spend referendum dollars on reducing class size, or if we were to do this, that, or the other thing? Asking that question around transfer students is an important thing for us to know more information about. And so I think that's a really smart thing for us to look at as an issue. Every community is unique when it comes to what are the issues that are driving public opinion about the school corporation. And so in this community, that's one thing. And certainly there will be others that we will uncover as well that we'll want to ask. I know that we have done some work in school corporations where there's a very significant percentage of their students that are transferring in from other school corporations. And that is an issue that others deal with. And there is always a concern that on both sides of the issue, there are people who look at the pros and the cons of that, but the conversation is occurring. And so we recognize that as an issue that is important for us to address and to think about.
May I just ask one last question? Yeah, it's great that you can, you talk about that survey, the community survey. I think that's very important. And can I assume that you have a way to reach those real residents? Because the last time when we did a survey about transfer students policy, and we collected data from about 60 plus self-identified residents. We don't know for sure whether they are residents or not. In addition, we could only reach the families who are currently in the school district, in the schools, but we couldn't reach family, for example, the home school families and those families who don't have school-age children. And so, but they are the majority of our residents, actually, probably more than 70% of them. So when you talk about doing the study, so you have a way to reach those bigger community and the real residents and solicit their opinion about those issues, right?
Yeah, and
thanks.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, Dr. Greiner discussed that survey with us, and the school corporation can pay for, you can spend as much money as people will take, as far as research goes. And fortunately, Dr. Greiner says, well, okay, there are times to invest a great amount of money, and there are times when you have to be a little more cost conscious. So I know that survey was not a statistically valid survey. It's more of an informal survey. What we're talking about here is we would recommend that you do invest in a statistically valid formal survey that allows you to hit different demographic targets, so that the people that you are surveying, just I'm gonna give a hypothetical here, which is not anywhere near true, but let's say there was 75% of your population was female and 25% was male. We would make sure that the survey hit 75% female and 25% male. For demographic groups, we will try to replicate your demographics in your school district, and so this does a sample size of 400, and you get a plus or minus whatever that is, 3.9% or something like that. Oh shoot, now I can't remember. Margin of error, that's the one, thank you. And so yeah, we will be able to hit the demographic targets to make sure that we're getting to the right people. That's, yeah, another good question.
Yeah, thank you very much for your patience.
Yeah,
Thank you.
very
That's very helpful.
David and then George.
So as you know, I co-chaired the Vote Yes Committee 3 years ago now. And you and I had a few different opinions on how to run. We both agreed light touch, but I was a little bit more light touch than you. But even with that light touch, we still spent a fair amount of money, which PACs are the only vehicle with which we can do that here in Indiana. If we didn't run with or use a PAC, we could probably knock door to door, send out social media messages, but we couldn't do mailers. We couldn't do anything to more broadly target the community. We couldn't do a survey to really get the opinions of the community. So in a year like this, because we're in a midterm, which I think, based on your comments, is better to do it than in a general or a presidential election because of differences in turnout.
Yeah.
Although it may be a high turnout this year.
It's probably going to be a high turnout this year.
Yeah. But there are a lot of factors that go into making these decisions, as well as making decisions on who to go with in this process. I was wondering if you could first share with us your record in referenda, as well as why we should pick you. Like, what about your company makes you the better choice compared to other options that we might have?
Yeah. I don't know if I can speak to the other options. I can speak to what we do. And what we do is really focus on the factual and the transparency from the school corporation to make sure that people have information that is, I use this this sort of illustration of the type of people who are trying to get information all the time. You've got a 3-second reader and a 30-second reader and a 3-minute reader. And most of us are 3-second readers. We read a headline and we've got as much information as we can take in, and we're going to go on and read another headline someplace else. The 30-second reader maybe reads the headline and the intro paragraph, the first paragraph of a news story or something like that. The 3-minute reader is going to read the entire news story, and for those people who are on the website, they might click through and go to the website. There are very few 3-minute readers. And so when we talk about transparency, most people don't see the transparency because they're not going to read the whole thing. But if they go to the webpage and they see that, okay, I could scroll down here for days and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but at least I see that you've got information here. And I might trust someone else who I know, whose opinion I trust, and I know that they read the whole thing. And if they tell me that, yeah, the school district is being very transparent here, then I think they're going to feel comfortable, even though maybe only read a headline. So we focus on the transparency from the school district because we want people to vote on this based on facts. Now, we still need, as much as we can, to have a political action committee, and especially when we are looking at an increase, not just a renewal of the current tax rate, and to be able to say why is the change, what changed for us, how did the situation change? change, and why are we still advocating for this? So the and I love the light touch, okay? The light touch is really toning down that advocacy and really raising up that factual. And my sense is that that plays right into what we do. So what's our record? We just did a bond referendum in Minnesota actually today is Monday the 9th. It's tomorrow the 10th. That will be number 58 for us. Since I first did my first referendum when I was working for a school corporation in 2007, and the record is in the neighborhood of 38 or 40 wins, and then when you look at the number of questions, sometimes you can have more than one question on a ballot. It's in the same kind of ratio. Can we guarantee success? No way. Can we look at providing the best opportunity to win? I think we can do a great job to provide the best opportunity to win, and to be honest, that means having a PAC. And I would also suggest that PAC is maybe a light touch, not just light.
Of course.
Yeah, I don't think that this year's a light touch. I think it's much more than that. In 23, it was light touch. How much do you think the PAC's going to need to raise? How much for the full package of everything you were talking about, including the voter rolls of likely voters? How much do you think all of that is going to cost us?
Yeah, starting with the Political Action Committee, I didn't put a budget yet together for that. There's some targeted advertising that I would want to do that again, people will take your money all day long. So you could spend $80,000 or you could spend $8. It's a small geographic footprint, and the number of registered voters is not huge. I think that you could get by on an advertising budget of about for some digital advertising of about $3,000 or $4,000. I think you could get by on some direct mail. And again, if you can raise the money, if you can't raise the money, I would say here are some things that I would rather you prioritize your dollars on. But if money was not an object, I would say you would spend another $5,000 or $6,000 on direct mail to targeted yes voters. I would say that you need another about $5,000 for the voter database, and pizza is important. You want for your phone bankers. So sort of ballparking in my head right now, I'm thinking the PAC could raise about $15,000. That'd be a really good thing. And that can be a challenge.
Does that also include the additional fees that you said you would charge the PAC?
I think so, yes. Now, for the school corporation is going to spend a chunk of money on the community engagement piece, and then a chunk of money on the school district's referendum marketing. And so those numbers are about $20,000 for phase 1 and about $33,000 for phase 2. But that doesn't include video production, so you want to add in a little bit of money for video production. We got by last year or in 2023 on a pretty inexpensive route or strategy there. And then the survey is a chunk. That's closer to $30,000. So it's an investment. It is at least it's not a special election where you have to run your own election, but it still is a chunk of money to spend. We recognize that it's expensive. What we also say is, when you look at the return on that investment, the revenue that you're bringing in is critical for kids. And it's, in the end, if you spend $100,000, you got however much this tax rate gets you, it's a good investment.
Okay, George.
Given everything we just talked about, can you give me the 30-second reader version of why education referendums fail? Because to me, it seems like you're voting against your own kids. But can you tell me from your experience, 30-second reader version, why referendums fail?
Yeah. You want to tackle? Number one is people don't see support for it. And I gotta be honest, people get on a bandwagon, and the first person out the gate with their bandwagon, whether it's the no group or the yes group, that's where people jump on, whoever's first. And so if you're positive and you can see support from the board, from the administration, from teachers, from parents, people go, okay, I'm willing to get on that bandwagon, I'll go with you. If instead they hear from the no group and the no group says, oh my gosh, it's gonna cost us so much money in taxes and there's this, that, and the other reason, the no group almost always is opposed to the referendum purely because of cost to themselves. What our job is to relay why a community, even if you do not have children in school, why a community benefits from investing in public schools. Your property taxes are going to reflect your market value rate. You've got a decent market value rate here in West Lafayette. In part, that's your proximity to Purdue and other things, but in large part is because of the public school district that people want their kids to go to. And when you have a home that's a great home in a great school district, you have a market to sell your home to when you're ready to move on to a whole boatload of people, including families. And some communities don't have that. I don't know if that helped.
I guess we'll find out in November, huh?
Yes, we will.
Okay. Anybody else have anything?
I have a quick question. Thank you, appreciate it. I see you. I'm glad to see you guys come back again. I really appreciate that. Just follow up the question. So basically, as you said, people support the referendum. One reason probably because they like these communities and their properties can keep their values and they can get good educations. But from that point of view, so if school have a transfer, say open transfer, any people outside of the district can transfer in. I mean, what do you think that there will be impact on the, let's say, the lawyer supporting families in district? You think there will be some impact, or what do you think from your experience? You have many referendum, probably you see something like this kind of situation. Thank you.
We certainly have seen it before, and again, kind of, again, there are pros and cons, for allowing for transfer students, and how does that impact how people vote. One thing is certain, the folks that are transferring their student into the district, they're doing that because they think that there's something good here for their kids. That is a plus. If a school district knows that people are coming here for the education, maybe there's not enough homes available that in the district that they can buy, but they see this district as a thing where they want their kids. Wow, that's a great testament to the work that you've all done to make this a great school corporation that is serving students. The people that say, I want my kid to go there, well, they found a reason for that, and I'd like to hear their stories. For the people that are here now and they see others coming here, they should also feel good about their school district, because look how popular we are. Look how people see the value in the education that West Lafayette Community School Corporation is providing. So that may be true, that may not be true. This is where the survey comes back to us is let's find out how people really feel about that. And I certainly don't want any one issue to derail how people feel about voting or supporting the referendum. And we might uncover other issues that are as important as we go through the process of community engagement. Hopefully, there's no other major issues, but sometimes there are. And so let's find out what they are, and if we can address them up front, having an answer is going to be important so that people can make up their minds, so that they can put those issues aside and concentrate or focus on the referendum and the reason why the referendum is important to them, if that makes any sense.
Of course, but you have to turn on your mic.
Yeah, sure. So, so back to your question, they, I mean, of course, they feel good. I mean, I live in the district, we have good neighborhood, communities, we have good schools. That's fine, but I mean, the high quality education is not cheap. You see what I mean? So people think that's nice, so they can move outside and then they can transfer their students, come back to school. So in that case, you think people like stay here, but I mean, rational people think, here's, I mean, the property is kind of old, and then you have beer, now you want to increase the tax. And from their point of view, and you say as we have the surveys, so we have about 600 response from in-district peoples, and they say if you open the district, 99%, so something like 1/6.3 response saying they are going to move out. So you can say that data is not really reliable, but I think that's kind of pretty strong and clear signal. Basically, we want a kind of stable, strong communities. So, and I mean, the moving, you can say moving is not easy. I mean, there's cost. Probably, I mean, you don't want, I mean, so many property on the market, probably they cannot get rid of that property as a reasonable market, I mean, the price. But when you say voting, we also ask that question. You can see there's the voting, when you take into the transfer policy into consideration, say if we have open transfer, we have open policy, so the 626 response, so 47% they say they will support the referendum. But if you have closed
If we
district,
haven't done the survey yet, why are you pulling numbers out of thin air?
huh?
If we haven't done the survey yet, why are you pulling numbers out of thin air?
What do you mean?
I said you're pulling numbers out of thin air. I know you're speaking hypothetically, but you're pulling numbers out of thin air, and we haven't done the survey that they recommend yet.
Oh, yeah,
Where are we going with this?
We have done the survey during the last couple months. We have pretty good response. So I just use that data. It's not official, but I think that's a kind of deliver. Let me finish that, but thank you for your question. So basically, so if you close your district, and the numbers have already jumped to 61%. So I'm saying one policy can change, say, 14% of supporting rate. So I think that's probably something we should take more serious considerations. So that's my reading of that survey. So, but again, I agree we need some people to do surveys. And basically, as far as I understand correctly, that survey and also video things that's not included in this 200 kind of name price tag, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. It is an issue that we should look into,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
I think it's important that we do. And so I think that absolutely, let's include that as part of the research that we do upfront, and learn that, and then move forward. Whatever that
Okay.
is, what are the, and
Sure.
a key is, if we ask the question and the community answers us, it's important that we listen.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. We should pay attention to that. But one more follow-up question. So regarding, I understand you guys come here just as you said, as you described, we try to fact findings. We find the fact and what's bad. But I mean, maybe the community member may be thinking they have perceptions. Maybe it's the wrong perception, but something like we use public fund to promote this kind of referendum. So what's the best? I mean, I think you guys have 50 districts, probably see this kind of situation. So what's the best way to handle, I mean, we don't want people saying, hey, you use public money to find somebody to promote another, that kind of situation. Do you have any experience or you want something to share? We try to, avoid these kind of misperceptions. Thank you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We hear that fairly often in referendum campaigns. One, is the school district promoting, advocating for the passage of this referendum, and two, is it spending money, taxpayer dollars, on doing that? And so part of the communication is just saying school districts are bound by state code to not promote the referendum after the board adopts the resolution to put the ballot on the question on the ballot. And so we include that message on pretty much all of the communications that we send out, so that people know that it's against the law for us to share advocacy information after that ballot question is approved. Secondly, do people complain about the amount of money that the school district it takes to share information? Yeah, they do. So one of the things that's important for us to also communicate is, if we don't share information, you're uninformed, and you may or may not make the decision that you're going to be happy with at the polls after you find out what the impact is after the election. Communicating after the election is not going to help anybody. So we need to communicate now, and it really follows along with the board's interest in transparency. And so it is a thing that you're going to hear, and your talking point will be, this is what we want as a board, is to be transparent with our community about the impact of if you vote yes or if you vote no, this is what will happen.
Thank you. I think that makes sense. It's kind of cost of transparency. The information is not free. But I appreciate it. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, if no one has anything else, oh, Rachel has one more thing. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion.
Oh, I'd love a motion.
Sure the right wording for the motion I want, but how about if I
Would
say?
it possibly be to engage with
I'd
Daler
like to make-
PR?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we engage with Daler PR for our referendum pre-work.
In accordance with the contract in the board
In
packet?
accordance to the yep, thank you. very
And not
much.
to exceed $53,000?
No,
No,
20, and then we decide, is that the right one, my understanding?
You can choose to break it into two.
That's why it's not to exceed.
We could break, yeah, not to exceed 50. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
So if you were to vote to have opportunity to engage in both, assuming the board would decide to move forward, if they decided not to move forward and they voted for both now, we're not bound to the second part.
Dr. Greiner, yeah, if you choose not to move forward with the referendum, then there's not reason for referendum marketing services, and we
So then it would just be the pre-portion. So if you don't have concerns with what you see in there and you choose to do the package, it addresses it and it keeps it smoothly moving forward. Something for the board to maybe discuss.
Okay.
Before vote, I just make a clarify. So basically, we are voting for that 20,000 or the 53, but the option is if we decide, so.
We can pull the plug later.
Correct. So you would vote for the package
The
to go, 53, which,
53,000
yes.
for the package.
but if the
in-
board decided not to move forward, then it would
then
stop
we-
at the 20,000.
We only obligate for the 20.
Correct.
27. Okay. Okay.
Is that a second, Lawrence?
Yeah, I can second.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Any further discussion? No. Then I'll start the vote. Well, that looks unanimous, gentlemen. Congratulations, and thank you for coming. And we look forward to working with you further.
Could I make,
Chair and board, thank you so much. I appreciate your confidence.
thank you too. We appreciate your time today. Can I make a comment real quick?
Sure.
Regarding, I just want to compliment the board on what we've done so far regarding transparency, because I've talked with each of you individually. As we developed the survey, we worked hand in hand individually and as a group. And then we went into focus groups, and I had board members comment to me, should we add another focus group to make sure that people were heard? That came from the board. I think you've been transparent. I applaud you for it. We will continue, and they've got tools that can help us continue that process. But I just want to be clear that from my perspective, you as a board have been transparent and very engaging with our community. And so I thank you for your partnership in that.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and take a 2-minute break in case anyone has a long drive ahead of them and would like to head home. And we'll come back at 7:37. So, thank you. It's at home. I would maybe get more listening. All right. That was a nice long break that I apologize to anyone watching at home that it took longer than I said. The next item on our agenda is number 8, which is our chiller, and that goes back to you, Dr. Greiner.
Thank you, Mrs. Austin. As discussed during the GeoBond process, the high school chiller replacement is a priority capital project, and it's even included on our capital project plan. Because it exceeds Indiana's Public Works threshold, the state law requires plans prepared by a licensed engineer. We recommend Creative Engineering Solutions Incorporated. This is the company that worked with us for the Happy Hollow Chiller project and is the most efficient and effective cost option. Creative Engineering worked with John Becker, the attorney from CCHA, to finalize the agreement included in your materials. The proposed engineering fee is $75,400 based on an estimated $1.15 million project cost. Approval would allow design work to begin and the project to move into competitive bidding so we can move forward. And I recommend board approval of the agreement as presented. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that. Go ahead, George.
In some of the documentation, they talked about the need to deconstruct one of the doors to get the chiller equipment in. Is it possible to talk to Creative Engineering and the other folks to see about just building a bigger door once they're done?
You and I had talked about that earlier, Mr. Lyle, and we certainly could have that conversation. It's something that it's worthy of discussing. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Is there a motion?
I can have a
Lawrence?
motion for that. Accept this proposal. And then I have a quick question regarding this 75, the fees they charge for us. I mean, we already have them to help us on the Happy Hollow, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so, but in this case, do they give us some discount? Because, I mean, this kind of.
Coupon?
No,
So
not really.
Buy one, get one free?
It is, I believe we said 6%. They have not entertained an additional discount. No, that's pretty much what they said is they think's fair market
They give
value.
us some.
Yeah, but great question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so Lawrence moved to approve and George seconded. Any further discussion? No. Okay, then I'll hit the button. There we go. That passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the support.
Great. And the next item is summer school, and we'll go to Mrs. Roth.
Certainly, you have information regarding summer school at the high school and dates for the required summer reading remediation at WLS. All of that was shared in the board packet. Also in your board packet, you have a copy of a contract from Indiana Online Academy. This vendor is used as a last resort when other free options are not offered. And reimbursement will be sought for courses purchased through IOA. The reimbursement rate is finalized once all schools in Indiana make their request. You are asked to please approve the contract so that summer school courses through Indiana Online can be offered to students when they are indeed needed.
Okay, is there a motion, please? Moved by George. Is there a second by Lawrence? Any discussion? Okay.
May I?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
and I know I asked some questions that Sean answered in the Friday notes, but I wonder whether we can have some clarifications for those similar questions. For example, for the first is the payment issue, and when students take a summer classes and they don't, sounds like they don't need to pay for it, except for if they are transfer students, there's a possibility that they have to pay for it. Is that the case?
If Indiana Online is the vendor, then there is a cost. In the past, no students have paid the cost. If
Okay.
Indiana Online is not the vendor, there is no cost.
But it sounds to me the school will be reimbursed for the cost?
The school
in
is
some-
reimbursed, yes. The reimbursement rate is not determined until after all reimbursement requests are made to the state of Indiana.
Right, so, but there's a possibility that there's a discrepancy for
Yes.
the cost and what, and the reimbursement, right? So the district will pay the difference.
Yes,
And-
the district has paid the difference in the past.
Okay, so for all the students, no matter their resident or
Correct.
transfer, so we pay for everyone.
Yes.
And,
For the
okay,
students only the Indiana online courses,
okay,
not for the other courses that are free to the district.
okay. So, okay, that leads to my second question. So those with the asterisks are the free courses, right? So
Those
if-
courses are free, and there are some other courses that are free as well.
Okay, so if students take those courses, nobody will, students won't pay and we won't pay.
Correct.
And the state will cover that pretty much. Okay, and so my other question is related to the required, because those ones with the stars is said to be required courses, and so there's some confusions about the required courses do students right now have to, I mean, for those 20 above or 29 above, have to take those courses, or they
It will
can take
depend
some
upon
other?
will depend upon the year in which they matriculate. So for the class of 2029, the requirements will be different than the class of 2027.
Okay, and so there are some complications about substitute. So some of our current courses can substitute those required ones. Some
The-
of them cannot.
So there are courses that are required, and if there's a possibility of a substitute, that would be explained through the counseling process. You had brought up computer science, for example. Foundations of computer science might be appropriate for a student who does not want to go the route of computer science. AP computer science might be appropriate for the student who does want to study computer science. So that is something that is part of the counseling process as counselors meet with students and talk with students.
Okay,
They
so,
want to make sure that whatever they would choose to meet a requirement would be appropriate for that student's pathway.
okay. So it's more about individual cases. The
Absolutely.
individual student need to talk to the counselor
Yeah.
and about their personal plan
Yes.
rather than having a general rule for,
Yes.
okay, oh,
Yeah, for instance, personal financial responsibility, you can meet the same requirement with finance and banking. If you are not at all interested in finance and banking, it's a year-long course, you wouldn't want to take it. But if you are, you would want to take it, and that would cover your personal financial responsibility. So it really is ideal for students to be, when they talk with their counselor, counselors work with students to create 4-year plans to understand what their goals are and to try and guide them, counsel them along the way on what would be the best way to meet a requirement.
okay. Will we have any kind of meeting for this new requirement so those students and their family can participate in
So
this, ask
That
questions?
is information that usually gets sent out,
Oh, okay.
and I don't think there's a meeting necessarily. It's just information that's communicated and sent out to families. And then again, counselors meet with the students to understand what are your goals, what's your current pathway, and to understand, is this current pathway going to get you where you want to go if your goals have changed? And if not, they can work on revising that together.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Okay, we'll go ahead and start. Vote to approve. There we go, 7-0. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the summer STEM camp.
Yes.
Back to you.
Once again, WLS teacher, Mr. Brantley, is proposing a summer camp experience, a STEM camp experience, and information was included as part of your board packet. That is the information Mr. Brantley would like to share with students and families, and we just ask that you approve his proposal so that he can begin registration for students who are interested.
Okay, is there a motion, please? Rachel, and seconded by Lawrence to approve? Is there any discussion? Lawrence, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick comments. I really appreciate Mr. Brantley. He offered this program for students. Our school is so fortunate to have so many dedicated teachers and staff members. they allow their kids, allow our students, serve our students even in the summertime. So I truly, truly appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, go ahead and start the vote to approve. Great, that was a quick one. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the board meeting calendar, and that goes to me. As you know, we only approved a partial calendar. Earlier, there is one adjustment to the every second Monday of the month schedule due to the ISBA conference, which I encourage everyone to attend because it's an excellent learning opportunity for the board, and it's a one-of-a-kind thing that they won't postpone for us. Otherwise, we will be meeting on the second Monday of every month, and it just updates the rest of 2026. Is there a motion, please? David, thank you. And a second? Rachel, thank you. Any discussion on the calendar? No? Okay, in that case, I will start the buttons. Thank you very much. And the next item is policies. So I will turn it over to Rachel, who will guide us through all of the things.
All right, so up first, we have B150, organizational meetings, Board of Finance and Committees. Policy Committee met, and our recommendation on this is to just, essentially, we're just adjusting policy to meet practice. Annually, at the end of the year, the board officers will compile a list of recommendations for committee assignments for the next calendar year. The board chair will bring to the full board for a vote at the annual organizational meeting in January. I know we had some conversation about it being assigned in February, but as we continued to talk through that and impact on other groups that we work with, we felt that it was still appropriate to leave it in January. And it would make us the cleanest Passover. We know it won't be ideal on a large turnover year or a change in board leadership, but we feel like there's a good history of board chair passing along information to next board chair, and we'd like to just consider our board would act collegially on this matter. So that would be the recommendation that we've made on B150.
Recommended by Rachel, is there a second?
Second.
Lawrence, thank you. Any discussion on this item?
Just quick share. I appreciate, I think the initial ideas provided by David. So, and then we have some conversations and with our board members. I think that's really good work. Collaboration works. I appreciate that. And the one thing I just look at this calendar things, maybe I can change that a little bit, not only for the committee proposals, maybe we can include the meeting calendar. Do you guys think that makes sense? Or what?
Well, we're an ad hoc committee, so we wouldn't have a posted calendar. We're ad hoc as a non-permanent committee.
I think Lawrence means the annual calendar, also having that set in
Oh,
March.
no, yeah.
Yeah, all right, yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah.
December.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I didn't, sorry, I
Okay,
didn't
yeah,
make myself. I'm just saying, just the way we proposal, we work together about December, to proposal, the committee assignment, and then also plus the next year's, whole year's, meeting schedule. Maybe, do you think that makes sense? Or, I mean, I can have a motion.
I'm open to whatever.
Yeah.
Everybody.
The way we already have it in a different policy?
Your
The
microphone's
calendar.
not on.
Yeah, the policy currently says to pass the calendar in the organizational meeting.
Organizing meeting.
It does say that.
So probably we can, I mean, propose a calendar after some discussions in December, and then for the general meeting, we'll be make that less stressful.
Okay.
What, I mean, I can have a amendment of this policy, basically add the whole year's a calendar proposal, board meeting calendar proposal for this December kind of proposal, include that proposal.
Okay, where it says, at the organizational meeting, the board shall determine a day, place, and time for regular meeting.
Can I interject here?
Sure.
So that's just the requirement in which we must do. That doesn't have to be our practice. So in December, we could prepare that work and then be in a position to vote on it in the January meeting, which I think what you're saying. I think if you start to say, we're going to do this in December, and then we're going to do that in January, and we're going to do this in February, it starts to be difficult to manage. But I like the idea that that conversation was started as an agenda item in December, I think that makes a lot of sense, but
Okay.
I just don't know that I would put that in policy.
That's fine. Then
Let's
I
try
just,
that.
That's my 2 cents on that.
that's fine. I just, we can think about that. We just.
Yeah, go
do
ahead.
these things.
Okay, anything else? No? Okay, let's go ahead and do buttons. To approve B150. And that is 7 out of 10, or 7 out of, I know what I mean. Right, the next one is 6, 7, yeah. The next one is
No.
D425.1.
D425.1, general guidelines for requesting additional compensation. This was the policy that was requested by the superintendent. Specifically, this would be an add-on, a short-term policy in place, just to keep us in line with our current teacher contract. And the policy committee and Dr. Reiner, we met and we've just added a small refinement to item number 3, where we've added the words relevance shall be determined by the superintendent or superintendent's designee. And with that recommendation from the policy committee, we recommend passing 425.1 as presented.
Okay, is there a second?
So you want the green text and the blue text?
Yes, thank you.
Yep. Green
Sorry.
and blue.
Green and blue.
Okay, is there a second on that?
I think second.
Thanks, Lawrence. And any further discussion?
May I just ask a minor question?
Sure.
So what does the number .1 mean?
It's a small addition to the overall policy, right?
This is the supplemental policy that is temporary, and that way, the point 1 was a way for it to be designated as not a typical standard part of the policy, and once the information that's in here is added into future contract negotiations, this policy would then be removed.
Got it. Thank you.
So it's
Any
just-
other questions?
This is just a short interim deal that we needed to make the teacher contracts valid, handled properly.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
All right, let's go ahead and start that vote to approve D 425.1. Look at him go. All right. And the next one is F250, travel expenses.
F-250 travel expenses, if you'll recall, this is one that the board, we reviewed it last month in second reading, and then we had some conversation and were asked to take it back to policy committee. I'm scrolling to find it. It was for some additional language just to clarify traveling between school buildings. Oh, come on, where are you? There you are. I'm not finding it. No, yeah, I was just trying to find the explanation notes. You all saw those in the committee notes, but basically it was reworking this paragraph 1 to just make sure that they were performing services for the corporation. We changed the word board into corporation. Just to, obviously the board is not providing payment. We are approving payment and the corporation in general is paying. And we put in specific language about the administrative guidelines in there to make sure there was clarity. And then again, changing corporation or board to corporation. Right.
Okay.
So we just went through this, we'd already discussed last meeting at pretty well at length, but we just went in and cleaned up language at the request of the board in our last meeting. Also, if this one is, the recommendation is to do this and also rescind PO 6650, which is the previous travel expenses policy.
And
6650.
Once again, just the green text or green and blue text?
Green and blue.
Okay, is there a second? Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, here comes the button. There you go.
Just to clarify, George, we left blue text in if a board member recommended it because we wanted that to be clear that board members had reviewed that and requested those changes. And it's not a matter of giving credit, but it's kind of making sure that it's clear who's
Oh,
done
it's
what.
less about giving credit and more just in our past discussions, there were separate recommendations where green text was recommended, but blue or red or purple wasn't. So-
True, yes, absolutely.
Great, and that one does pass. Next up is F325.
All right, F325. It would make sense if I put these in order in the notes, just saying.
I can talk slower.
Oh, come on, that would be too easy. Expecting me to use my computer skills. Come on. All right. F325, debt management policy. It is our recommendation of the policy committee to approve the policy with the edits. As noted, we kind of went through and had some conversation. This is not a required policy, but we believe it is good to have it on record if at some point it is needed to support acquisition of debt. Michelle made the recommendation to us to remove the section on debt limits and edit the paragraph to say previously approved and remove the specific date. The reason for that is just to allow the policy to stand a little bit more without constant revision. When you put dates in like that, it can be a lot of revision. And so with that, I am recommending that we pass F325 debt management policy.
Okay, is there a second? George, thank you. Any discussion? All right, here come the buttons. Go. Next is G350. I feel like I'm calling bingo.
I know, this does it a little bit that way. All right, so G350 deals with audio, video, and digital recording on school property and of school meetings. This is one we've kind of talked about a lot over the years, and this policy really was intended to clean up a little bit. We recognize that there are reasons a parent or guardian may wish to record a meeting to aid in their collaboration with the corporation and benefit their student. The corporation requests 24-hour notice prior to the meeting so both parties can be prepared to record. This was really about changing the language to be more collaborative in nature, kind of remove that there's something wrong if a parent wants to do this. The update needs to be made to our current policy, so this is the recommendation, which is to strike out of the red and adding of the green, and you can see the explanation there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure that I haven't missed any language there. Yeah.
Okay.
And then we did add the Indiana code citation down at the bottom, or legal did. As a reminder, red in there is the attorney recommendation.
Okay. David?
Yeah, what did I miss, David?
I'm just going to make a motion to approve the policy with one additional red line that I'm just seeing now. Under meetings with parent guardians, section 3, in the second paragraph, the sentence after request 24 hours notice prior to scheduled meeting, all audio recording is subject to, needs to be redlined. That was just
Yes,
missed
it's just a
in this
typo.
line.
And just to clarify on this one, George, just to keep it interesting for you, in this one, we are recommending the green and not the blue. So we're recommending the red line, but we have tried to incorporate the board member recommendation into the green language that we've added. And so that was just a refinement,
So it sounds like David is moving and Rachel is seconding the approval of the green, but not the blue, with the additional red line over all audio recording is subject to in section 3, paragraph 2.
Yes, and just to follow up to what Rachel had said, we had used that blue language to create our green modification. We chose to frame it in a more collaborative approach than we previously had. We appreciated the blue recommendation, but we just modified that a little bit to make it more collaborative.
Okay. Daisha?
So this policy is actually not our policy. This is the policy that CCHA had originally sent to us. We actually edited this policy to make it more collaborative. So the current policy that we have in place doesn't match the recommended changes. So I would like to make a motion that we postpone this, send it back to policy committee, and have them make any changes to our policy if necessary. instead of this one, which does not line up at all with ours in the wording. So we're approving something that actually isn't something that we have in place.
So if I could comment upon that.
Well,
the-
is there a second?
Oh.
Okay,
Okay.
now you may comment.
So this is correct. This is a policy given to us with Indiana code changes. So it does not match what is currently posted. I believe we passed that in September. What we got is a clear recommendation from legal. These are things we need to do to be compliant with the law. We have now augmented that to be in the more collaborative tone that we would like. And it is ready to pass at this point in time from my perspective.
Okay, George?
So the policy you put in front of us replaces what we've got
Yes,
now?
it's a replacement policy for what is currently in place. It is not intended to mimic what is currently in place.
Okay, Yue?
I propose the blue one, and because I'm not convinced by the 24-hour notice, given that Indiana has a one-party consent law.
I'm sorry, are you proposing an additional change?
I think she just has a question, if I
Oh.
could answer it.
Are you asking a question or proposing a
So,
change?
because your motion is to pass the green one, but my proposal.
Right now, the motion in front of us is to postpone.
Okay,
So we're
Postpone
talking
it?
about whether or not we're going to bounce this back to the policy committee again so that they can align it with the policy we passed previously. And what Rachel just said was that they did not intend to align it with the previously passed policy because legal had changed certain language to align with the law. So this would supersede the policy we passed before, and they tried to incorporate the collaborative language that was suggested by the previous iteration of the policy.
Correct. And if I'll just answer your question, Yue. That's the reason the language says they request 24 hours. There's no requirement. You're right. Anybody can walk in and record any meeting, but in the nature of collaboration, we recognize that it would be nice for our staff to know and be aware and be able to record, but there's no requirement for that in the language as presented.
Daisha?
Just to clarify, our policy was not sent to CCHA to say, is it in compliance or not? All we did was CCHA sent us their original one from a year ago, edited it, so this is what we need you to change to line up. And I'm saying this isn't what we pay for. We pay for them to support us in our policies, not adding. This is very chaotic to say, I want it changed this way, but it actually doesn't even match what our current policy is. So I hope that in the future that we will use our policies to make recommendations to legislation instead of just going the way of what was originally done a year ago and not even considering what we have in place. Because a lot of this that they recommended, we already had in place and we didn't need to actually edit our policy.
It sounds like it was considered.
It was very much considered. We obviously, as policy committee, take that seriously, and we review previous policy and current policy. That is what happened in here, and then there was a conversation. This is not about critiquing necessarily the information that we've gotten from CCHA. It is a matter of determining what is the best policy for our corporation. That is what I believe has been presented here tonight.
Lawrence?
Yeah, I think back to Deja's question, I think Dr. Grana and we committee, we have some discussion regarding these policies. My understanding is the CCHA will, later they will review our policy and then give us updated. Is that correct?
You are correct, Mr. Wong. If we present our current policy when it's time for the changes, they are very willing and happy to take that policy and make suggestions within that policy and then give it to us or the committee for consideration and the board to have consideration.
That makes sense. So, but basically for this particular policy, it's not really our current policy. So I think probably we can postpone that for next meeting so we can get a clean, current policy based change. I think it's not really difficult. It's pretty easy. Just change the one paragraph with whatever the green one with our current policy. But just that make a little bit confusing. So I would prefer to bring this back to policy committee and then we get a clean, much clean version. So next time we can present to the whole board. That's my preference. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else want to weigh in on whether or not to postpone this item? Okay, that's what we're voting on right now. Oh, David, go ahead.
Oh, my microphone's still on. Sorry. I'm fine with us just sending it back for us to look at it again and show that it's the same. There are a few minor wording differences, but we can take some time away from other stuff and do that. Just,
Yeah, I
I
think
want everybody to be 100% on our policies, so I'm fine with us.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not that difficult, but I think that maybe make robotics work more complicated. So we can't have a clean a copy. So just present to the whole board. So I mean, that's kind of our job of our committee. So we want to have a nice presentable version so the whole board can vote on that. So that's my preference. Thank you.
My position is a little different from my colleagues here on the policy committee. Knowing the policies that we are going to have coming up, specifically that of determining access to our schools, that's coming up in legal settlement policy, C-125, and that one's going to be extensive and complex. This allows us, and this is important, that we be aligned with Indiana Code. We are not currently aligned with Indiana Code. We are talking about commas and semicolons right here. My preference, my recommendation is that we proceed with this so that we can prioritize policies that are really going to be critical in hitting us the next couple months.
Okay. All right, with that, I will go ahead and start the vote. We are again voting on whether or not to postpone, not whether or not to approve. So this is to postpone G350. And it's not coming up. There we go. Okay, the postponement passes 4-3. Let me fix this real quick. Okay, so the next item then is G450.
G450, Policy Committee recommends adopting G450 with an edit. We did receive some board member feedback asking us to consider naming right agreements may include time limits, renewal, and revocation clauses, subject to school board approval. That is the language that we have added. In particular, we felt that was important. Obviously, circumstances change, and there needs to be an exit option as well if 20 years down the road that's necessary. So with that edit, it is my recommendation that the board approve policy G450.
Seconded by David, great.
Yeah, hang on.
Oh, go ahead.
We need to rescind policy 7250 and 9700.01 if we do pass this one.
Can you give me those numbers one more time?
7250, 9700.01.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any discussion on those? Great, I'll go ahead and start this to approve G450 and rescind those, but yeah, okay. The next item is G475.
G475 is prohibition of unmanned aircraft or drones. We did receive some feedback on this one, and really we just it greatly simplified the process, obviously, to just say, except where approved by the superintendent, their designee, or the board, the flying of unmanned aircraft over corporation policy and events is prohibited. We clarify that with the definition. This was important for us to phrase this in this way because we do, in particular, athletics department does use drones in their work with football games in particular. And so we just felt this would be a simpler, cleaner way to make sure that we were aligned with the law.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion on G475?
Yeah, I have, I want the proposal and just make a some motion to use the original proposal from CCHA. I truly appreciate the board members' revisions. That's really neat and pretty much cover the key issues. But I think now the original proposal have several key informations. One is the reason why we have this policy, the purpose One is safety, another one is for protect the students and the school people's privacy. That's purpose, kind of purpose statement, the base of the policy. Another thing is the legal base. We follow the, what's the name of that? FAA, right? FAA, yeah. We follow the FAA's guidance. So that's the kind of a legal base of this policy. Another thing I want to mention is they also cover the our school sponsored programs. I understand if we have some, even we sponsor program, but it's off the campus, probably we cannot enforce this policy. But I think if we have school-sponsored programs, we kind of have the ownership. If something happened, probably we got to be, accountable for that. So giving those considerations, I think the original versions, the language maybe put our school in a more defendable positions in case something happened. So that's my my thought. So I just have this motion. But again, the reverse one is okay for me. I prefer the original language, but
Okay.
the revision is also okay. Thank you.
Is there a second to Lawrence's motion to use the original? Okay. Rachel?
Dr. Reiner, am I correct? This was sent to legal, the proposed? As I recall, you sent policies in draft to legal to review. Did that happen with this one?
The unmanned one?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what I do is I send, oh, I'm sorry, thank you. What I do is I send, when I get those proposed language changes, I send those to legal and ask if there's an issue. And then you, as a committee,
Right.
discuss, as long as legal suggests that there's not conflict or contradiction to law and so
Right.
forth.
That was what I was just wanting to clarify. Lawrence, I know said we might be legally in a better position with the original text, but this has been reviewed by legal and this is appropriate text that does comply with what's needed.
Okay. Anyone else? George?
So the only problem I see with the text that we're being asked to approve is that it may be difficult for the corporation to enforce the prohibition in the circumstance where we have a corporation event that is not on corporation property. But it's the kind of thing where it's not worth not passing the policy because of that, because we can just change a word or strike out a word. But even if we pass it as is, the intent of the policy is clear. It just may result in some difficulty in enforcement when we're not over corporation property.
Does the top text cover that? I'm not reading that the top text covers that either.
It does partly in one of the paragraphs, but then let me look through the strikeouts here. It says on or over corporation property, including at corporation-sponsored events. So it is grammatically different enough
Yeah.
that it doesn't cover corporation events off property.
Yeah, so we say corporation property and events is prohibited, so it should say in your mind, corporation property and corporation events. It's, and the,
I think it makes sense. I mean, if you on the program in other people's property, and it's
Microphone.
probably difficult to. It's probably difficult to enforce. But I think if we have that language, have scope a little bit bigger, extended, and in case something happen, we are more defendable. So that's my my thought about that.
Daisha?
Did I understand, George, are you the one that simplified it? Are you the one that made this recommendation?
I didn't make the specific recommendation for the language that's here.
Oh, okay.
But I did point out that, if I remember correctly, that there were use cases for drones, like at the football games where they do the overhead cameras. And there may be some things that fly over our campuses that we don't control. Like, the Polytechnic has drones that are going overhead all the time. And, you know, us arguing with Purdue about what they're doing is going to be a fool's errand.
I guess my question is, I'm not sure if I clearly even understand the difference between the two. They just are different wording, so I didn't know whoever had recommended changing the wording, what the reasoning is, because I'm not sure which one, because they give me the same message, so I'm trying to understand which to vote for.
David?
George, you were the one that sent the committee to simplify the policy committee like this. I have the email up, so.
Yeah, George.
Here I go.
I-
getting called.
A couple times since then.
So
It all falls back.
Always my lawyer.
my grad students feel the same way about me, about how I edit things that I edited in their manuscripts. But what the way that I'm understanding the concern here is solely about corporation property and also corporation events.
And also,
Correct.
I don't want to misstate any quote-unquote concern. All I'm saying is the policy is perfectly valid as written. It's just going to be difficult to enforce if we have a corporation event that is not on corporation property.
But
I feel like it's going to be difficult to enforce in any way, either version of this policy, that would be difficult to enforce.
But
Yeah,
I-
because we don't have any anti-drone rifles, so, yeah.
no, but I can see the idea is specifically for individuals affiliated with the schools is where the enforcement would come in. If a student were to be using a drone at an away football game, this policy would still be, would still apply, and there could be consequences as a result of this. I think correct me if I'm wrong, but where your concern would be is a non-affiliated person using a drone at a corporate event that's not, or a corporation event that's not here. Those would be hard for us to do anything about, even if it was on corporation policy or property, although there are other avenues for that. I mean, I imagine if it's any corporation event or corporation event, regardless of where it is, if it's someone affiliated with the corporation, whether it's a student or staff member, that should still be. I'm struggling to see where the difficulty in implementing this implementing this policy would come in.
Oh, so perhaps I will do a mea culpa and say I probably shouldn't have said anything. Because the point I'm trying to make is if we pass this as written, it's fine. I'm just saying that there is a potential difficulty in the way that we worded it, but that's the kind of difficulty that's present in almost anything we pass. Because even though we're making policy, we're not making law, and we at this desk don't really have a whole lot of enforcement power on our own. So, for example, if somebody did decide that they wanted to test out their new drone over a football game, it wouldn't be any one of us that's going up to that person saying, hey, don't do that. We would have to talk to the coaches, the athletic director, and West Lafayette PD. So, and enforcement is always about, you know, who has the authority to tell somebody not to do something. And it's kind of an assumption and a given that we have the authority to tell corporation employees, guests, visitors, and students what they can and can't do. And so that's why I say I was attempting to just, you know, put a point out there saying, hey, this wording might cause some difficulty later, but it's perfectly valid to pass now. But I also now see, like I said before, I probably just shouldn't have said anything.
No, we appreciate your feedback.
Yeah, really appreciate that. I think that's quite neat and clean.
All right,
Okay.
so I don't remember what motion we have.
Lawrence has moved to use the original from CCHA, or to move to pass the original from CCHA in lieu of the policy committee's version. So if we're ready to vote on that, I can hit the button? Okay, let's do that. Okay. Why isn't, is mine not working there? Okay, like, there we go. Okay, so that passes. 6 to 1. Okay, so next we move on to G500.
Right, so G500, intellectual property and ownership revenue. We had a lot of discussion about this one, went back to legal. And essentially, we went back to legal with some questions. They came back and said, this policy is optional. And as we discussed it and continue to discuss it, our recommendation is that we not pass G500 at this time.
Okay, so we're just gonna move on.
Well,
Yeah,
somebody can move to pass it.
Oh,
but-
I suppose, yeah.
I'm
go ahead,
making that
Deja.
motion that we not pass it.
Okay, is there a second on that? I don't think we need a motion to not pass.
If there's no motion, then there's no motion on it. We don't have to, we only have to make a motion if we want to pass it.
I have a question. For those of us that weren't in the policy committee meeting, can you just share kind of why this was something that they recommended, why you decided not to, just kind of some of the mindset behind it, please?
Would you like me to go?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I think that there are a couple parts to it. One is the legal enforceability of anything like this, I think would go fairly well beyond the resources of the corporation to enforce. We also felt like the policy may be overreaching in terms of the corporation would own things, intellectual property created by students. And we felt like that we had some discussions about perspectives on what should students own versus what should we own. And we felt like at this time, we shouldn't be putting a line down on trying to take students' intellectual property.
In particular, we had a conversation about our author in the intermediate school and how that was work done under the guidance of our teachers, but it certainly does not belong to the school corporation. So that was really what drove the anecdotal case that drove the conversation.
Thank you.
Okay, George?
Just a question, did any of you hear from CCHA about, since we're a governmental body, are we even capable of holding copyright anyway?
Oh, now you're getting deep.
Governmental bodies can.
Well, no, the federal government doesn't for the most part. I mean, there are some special exceptions, but I wasn't sure whether or not we as a school corporation could if there weren't marks and trademarks related to the corporation itself. I was just curious.
We didn't ask that question. We can if you want us to.
But they also said we don't have to pass this
Yeah.
policy. It's an optional one.
Yeah.
Well, then let's not spend the money. All right.
Okay, all
Okay,
right,
right on.
well done.
Okay, so the next item is the first reading of the following policies. It's B100, Board Authority and Philosophy, C125, Admission to the Corporation, parentheses, legal settlement, and F125, Purchasing Procedures and Capital Assets. And those, along with G350, which is the one we postponed, will be handled at the next meeting.
That is correct. We also have the H policies that we did not get to. We intentionally set those aside to next month. So those were first reading last month, and we're continuing those to second reading next month. It's H100, H125, H175, H225, and I think that's it.
Okay.
But I want to just point out, and we'll say it here in a public meeting, C125 has multiple revisions and is very complex, and a lot of feedback. I appreciate everybody who gave feedback as we went along. Obviously, that's not for this meeting. That'll be in our next meeting that we talk about, but the next policy meeting is on February the 25th. And so if all board members could please provide us their feedback. I think Roberta's done a beautiful job of labeling things so that we can find them. And so if they could refer back to what version, that would be very helpful when we get that feedback.
Okay, and we'd like to have the feedback by February 20th, and we're gonna hold that firmly this time because of the complexity. Any feedback received after midnight on February 20th won't be considered. Is that correct?
And a thank you to Lawrence, who is the one taking on kind of collating all of this information together. It is not simple, and I have not been able to give it the focus that he has. So I'm very grateful to him for taking the lead on this policy in particular.
You guys have done a great job. I am extremely grateful. Yes, David?
Just for clarification, 11:59 PM. Because otherwise 12 would be, midnight would be
11:59
beginning of the
PM
day.
on
Sorry,
February
Just
20th,
had to clarify that.
Clarity and transparency.
as stamped by the email. Okay, the next item is I'm sorry.
Go ahead, she had her, give it.
You go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't see your light.
Just a clarification, and so for the transfer policy, and this is a general policy, and on this policy, we also talk about for each year, probably we need to specify the cap for that year, right? So some details, and will we have another policy or guideline or whatever we call it for this coming year? If so, when will be the timeline for that? Because last time we heard that students are waiting for the results, but will we have that information for them by April or?
So I'll ask Dr. Greiner to chime in, but one of the things we talked about was having administrative guidelines complete at the same time as a policy, so that it's clear some of these things belong in policy and some of them belong in administrative guidelines. And that's why this kind of feedback is important to get as we go, so that those things can be sorted into the correct place where they're operationally appropriate. Does that sound like what we talked about?
It does sound like what we talked about, but we also talked about that ultimately the board will determine what goes in policy versus, yeah.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
So if I understand correctly, typically we do a first reading, revisions are recommended, then at the next board meeting, the second reading, and there's a vote. For this policy, I would like to ask that we don't plan on voting in March, because it's going to be a lot of information for a policy committee to be looking at, and then to think a few days later, we're just going to be voting on something without ever having a discussion on the different topics. And so I think, which is, I think, pretty typical on anything that's complicated, is this sounds great, send all our recommendations to policy committee. They can make some thoughts and recommendations, but then the plan would be in March that we get to have a school board discussion. The community can hear that. Then they can give feedback on whatever the final policy, and then we vote in March. Otherwise, I think we need to have a work session to discuss it, because it's just a very complicated, there's tons of details, and just thinking that the policy committee will decide what they're going to recommend, we all tell the community we're voting on it in March, doesn't seem like an appropriate process for passing this.
George?
I'm not opposed to having a work session about it, but for that policy in particular, we have been talking about it for months. No, but I'm going to reference the community and all of us individually, us in small groups. We've been talking about this for a really long time.
There's a big difference between collecting information and talking about it, and actually looking at a policy and seeing what the details of the policy are. And so if we, in my view, our key role as a school board members right now is to get our community to pass the referendum. That's what we need. That's where our key funding is going to come from, is to increase that. And that's going to happen with the community trusting us. And so any rush that we're putting on a policy that matters as much as this one does, without having it very clear, open discussion, this is what's being recommended, here's the details, okay, community, any additional feedback on the policy, not just general collection. And so that's why I feel like this one needs to be handled differently. And if we would like to rush it to be voted on in March, which I'm fine with, then I think we need a work session so that we can have the discussion on the actual policy before it's ready to vote.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
As you guys dialogue, Mrs. Mumford, just so I understand, if you said rush through with with board work session, would it feel rushed through if there was a work session with it where you talked in public, or would it feel like a great compromise to continue to build community trust?
My personal view is if there's a meeting, and it can be the work session, but not the work session a few minutes before the public meeting. It'd be separate, but then the community would be very clear kind of what we're advocating for and where we stand. Where the policy is right now, there's just a lot of work and discussion that needs to happen. And to think that all those recommendations, the policy committee is just going to do their opinion, and then we're going to vote on it, to me, is skipping a process in this.
And so I truly, I wanted to know if the work session would feel like that respect was granted. Okay, thanks.
Rachel?
Yeah, and I mean, I am not opposed to making this a 3-reading policy, but I'm a little bit perplexed because the argument previously made was we must get this policy passed so that our students are protected and we can communicate with them. And now it is, hey, let's not do this until April, and when we're close to the end of the school year. And so I think that's my question. I do think as a board that we have to keep our eye on the impact on students as a priority. And I would like to understand from you, Dr. Greiner, the impact on students if we further delay the processing of this policy.
I think it's very important to ensure, we've come a long way on this, and that's why I complimented the board from my perspective as superintendent earlier. I don't want to do anything to jeopardize trust, and that's why I truly wanted to understand if an additional work session so that we don't move into April, because I am concerned about the timeline. I think I heard Mrs. Mumford saying the same thing, not to speak for you, Mrs. Mumford, but if we, or if the board believes that in between work session could do the same thing as moving it to April, I think it would be really important to give families the information sooner rather than later, but I'm very sensitive to the trust of the community because I want them to feel heard and know that when we say we're going to review each year, and we stay true to being very transparent, and even if it means adding that additional work session in between now and the next board meeting, I think that can go, this referendum's critical. And I think that point is well taken. And so I'm very sensitive to any board member that says, what can we do to be extra transparent and build the trust of our community? But I also am concerned about going into April, but I didn't hear anyone on the board saying that they aren't concerned about that. And so if we could get to a point where the whole board felt comfortable, I'm very comfortable with an additional work session too.
So the policy committee is meeting on February 25th. There's Monday, March 2nd, and Monday, I'm sorry, I looked at it wrong. Monday, March 2nd, in between that meeting and our meeting on the 9th. Just as a, for instance, since we love seeing each other on Mondays, would everyone be available on Monday, March 2nd? As show of hands quickly, please. Okay. Let's wait on everyone else. Yeah, same time as this meeting. Okay. Is that all right with you?
Could we do 5?
Sure.
It just,
Yeah.
no,
Not
okay.
5:15?
Mrs. Witt says no.
5:30?
go 5:30?
5:30?
That's fine.
Do I
That's fine.
hear 5:45?
I'm fine with 6. I just didn't know if an hour earlier would help everyone, family time at home, but 6 works well with me. So let's just do 6 to stay.
6 is okay? All right. So we'll, 6 o'clock on Monday, March 2nd, we'll do a work session. And we can discuss it one more time before we vote then on March the 9th. Is that all right with everyone? Okay. Good collaboration, team. Roberta, would you please send that out to everyone as a calendar invite so I don't screw up the work sessions and exec sessions again? You see what happens when I do it myself. It gets all fouled up. Okay.
May I ask something?
Yes, of course.
And so for that board meeting, I wonder whether we can, besides that policy with everybody's income input, I wonder whether we can also see the plan, the guidance for the coming year, and regarding, for example, the caps for total and the caps for each grade, because that matters. For example, for the lower grade, K-3, will we run new classroom just for the transfer student, or we will only fill in any empty seat for the existing classroom? I think that matters. And So I would like to see that in addition to the new policy, so the implementation and
Guidelines we could not provide because guidelines are created after a policy is developed and the policy won't be developed yet. But caps, we've put some information in Friday notes. We can discuss that. Everybody, I think on the board has seen that. That can be discussed, of course, by the board. And if the board has additional questions or information you'd like for Mrs. Roth and I to provide for you, of course, we will be happy to continue to do data collection and provide that to the board so that the board can discuss in a work session.
Daisha?
Sorry, one more question, because I think I'm wanting to make sure I understand, because it's possibly new knowledge. Do I understand correctly that Indiana code says, number one, if we accept transfer students, we also have to prioritize accepting family members? In the discussions, it felt like, and in my understanding in the past, is there's kind of employees, children's, current transfer students, and then there's all the other, you could set up lots of categories, but everything else that could be considered.
You are correct. And it's the legal, the legally defined, what is it?
The legally defined priority.
Legally defined priorities, yes.
We're
And so-
required to
Yes.
prioritize
But not, but
children of current transfer students.
I don't think so. I sent that to you. Let's pull that back up. I don't,
Sorry, not children, thank you.
yeah, let's look it up real quick.
Family members, siblings, thank you. That would have been.
Household.
Yes.
members. That's a better word.
Yes.
That's
yeah.
an Indiana code, and I hadn't understood that previously. Okay, so that has to be considered differently
Yes.
than all other applications per Indiana code?
That's correct.
And we're learning this as we go too, because
Yeah.
we've been in closed history. So that's why I wanted to pull up the notes, and I appreciate the questions that
you
you gave me in
sharing, just
advance.
'cause I know
Absolutely, yeah.
the community, is trying to keep up with us.
Yes.
On all this information we're learning as well. Thank you.
Just so we're clear, just to make sure that no one's confused, in the note that you sent us today,
Yes.
the answer that you got from the lawyers, it says that Indiana code does not require current transfer students and their household members to be treated as the same priority category.
So the current transfer student is always the priority.
Right.
And then everybody else falls under that.
Right.
Into the lottery.
A random drawing, a publicly verifiable random
But if I understood correctly, so we are not supposed to consider, we don't have to consider a transfer student and their family member at the same level, but we do have to consider the family member before we can consider other applications. Is that what I understood from Indiana code?
drawing. And to be specific, the law says household.
Household is the word I'm
Someone
going to get in my
residing
head.
A person residing in the same household.
Okay, helpful, thank you.
That sounds different than what's written here. That's why I'm trying to get a clear understanding of where we're going with this. As it says, right now, the note says, does not require current transfer students and their household members to be treated as the same priority category.
Why don't we verify this with Jesse tomorrow?
So it was my question, and the reason I was asking it is, do they have to be on the same line, was my question. Do we have to have them equal? And that's what she was saying, no.
No, the current transfer student is always the first priority. And anyone else, including someone in the same household, falls at a different level of priority. So if we reached capacity through current transfer students, those in the same household would still have priority if we were to open up more capacity, but not at the current transfer level.
And that was your question, right? That they're not on the same line? Yeah.
My question to see the legal counsel was, are they at the same level of priority or different? And so Indiana code says they do have to be prioritized, but not, the answer was not at the same level.
Correct.
Yes. The other thing that we heard regularly from legal on this is that whatever rules, whatever priority we put in place has to be consistently followed. There's not exceptions. The rules are the rules and they have to be applied evenly. So that is language that you're going to see pop up throughout this whole thing as we go through.
David?
A couple.
Okay.
Let me turn
There
that
we go.
off.
That works. Okay. I think we have a limit of 4 people that can have their mics on at the same time. We just found that out. Two other pieces of information that we had discussed based off of conversations with legal. The legal priorities that are listed there, we cannot add to those. Like, we can't say that somebody who is a prior member of the robotics club, or I'm using that as, would have priority. We can't add in other layers, including somebody in our preschool who is out of district. We can't prioritize them over other transfers. So, yeah, we had some stuff in there, and we talked with legal, and the other thing that legal brought up that's really important for us, if we change to say that we are a closed district, then even current transfers cannot stay. So that's an important piece for us in this discussion. If we change to closed, then we have to remove all transfers.
So did law change? Because we have said we are closed and accept transfer students for the last number of years.
This is what threw us too, Mrs. Mumford. So I'm going to explain this. When I was asking that question, the question was, if we don't continue with the agreement with TSC and we're working on for that year, this past summer, and we're working on open versus closed, can we just add them to our ADM since they were already coming? And the answer was yes. The piece that we didn't ask was what happens after a policy is voted on to fully close. And if you're closed, then you're not taking those transfers. So what you would have to do is phase them out, and you would have to be an open district, and you would phase them out by setting your capacity differently each year, so that by the time they were gone, they were all gone, but that you weren't adding additional students. So you, as students were graduating, you would change your capacity so that new people weren't coming in and no one new was coming in at the grade level where you still had transfers. Does that make sense? How can I say that differently? Rachel, would you like to, or Mrs. Witt?
Basically, how I would explain it in shorter terms is the state law does allow you to whittle down until you're close. You have an interim policy that says, we're going to decrease this enrollment, and you adjust your capacity levels so that we're always at capacity and more students can't come in.
That's the key, though. It's not an interim policy. It's a
Right,
policy
yeah.
that you are an open district. And and
It
you can
has to stay open,
yes.
but you titrate your capacity down so that
Yes.
effectively you're not allowing anybody else new in until you are complete, until all of those students are gone.
And you do that by figuring out what I was trying to say was the current transfer students. How many are there at each grade level? And that's your capacity
Yeah.
for accepting others. And that gets adjusted every year
Correct.
until you're at zero.
Yeah.
Now, why is this something that's only being, like, I guess my question is, why did a year ago we say we were closed, but we were taking transfer students?
We were open under the agreement with TSC, and they were adding them to their ADM, and we were charging.
It's because of what's going on the ADM.
Yes.
So it is because the law changed and doesn't
Yes.
charge. We would have had to change things, period, because of that.
Yes,
That's helpful, thank you.
you're welcome.
If I could also throw this out there, this was another question. David touched on a couple that were really important. But there is always been a question about staff. And so we specifically asked legal what the minimum of the law is, and that is that we provide for staff to enroll their students so long as we have capacity. That is the minimum that we can put in the law, or in our policy. But what we can do is what we are already doing is we can do more than that in our policy, and we can guarantee that children of our staff get placement. So I want to call that out, that we have a distinction that we can make there. We can say that we're going to do the minimum the law requires, or we can vote as a board to do more than that and guarantee our staff's children, which I'm going to recommend that we do. But that's another decision that we have to make in this policy.
Okay, and just to be clear, the last 24 policies have been as a package, but we have done policies before where it's been this or that, you know, and someone has moved, no, I'd like to move that we accept the blue language, and then we talk about that, and then we go back to the policy as a whole. And we can continue to do that. That's not going to change just because it's a controversial policy. It would be swell if we could have one package policy that we can all agree on. But I've been here a while and I understand that that's probably as likely to happen as some other wishes I have. So next, we're going to talk about the committee assignments in your packet. There is a list. I have been invited by the mayor to stay on the redevelopment commission. To be very clear, because there was a misunderstanding of this that was pointed out to me by a community member, the representative from Tippecanoe Schools and I are non-voting members on the redevelopment commission. We have a seat at the table so that if something is going to unduly affect the schools, or whether, negatively or positively, we can mention it. Like, I've thanked the commission for some of the work they've done in the past, and they want our input because they don't want to negatively affect us, but we are not voting on their items. So I have been invited to stay on that, and I prefer to remain on board teacher discussion. I think it sends a positive message to the Education Association to have the president of the board on that. George, with the legislative, Daisha, I've moved you to community council as you and Lawrence requested, and moved Lawrence to the Public Schools Foundation of Tippecanoe County. I appreciate you checking to make sure that was okay with their leadership. David on Parks, Rachel on the West Lafayette Foundation, and Dr. Ian is going to finish out Glass as they transition. And we have discussed some other opportunities that are coming available around the same time as that will finish, so we may be able to make it so that there's no gap in your community involvement. So I'm excited that that is the case. So anyhow, this is my recommendation. I move that we accept it. Is there a second? David, thank you. Any discussion? Daisha.
I would like to make a motion to adjust it and add UA to the West Lafayette Schools Education Foundation as well. At the last meeting, I thought Rachel gave a good point why 2 would be valid. UA had asked already to serve on it, so I think it would be, and we reviewed the bylaws that says that we could have actually up to 3 people, and so I would like to adjust your motion and add UA to the West Lafayette Schools Education Foundation as well.
Okay, is there a second? Okay. Any discussion? George?
Yeah, I just want to warn everybody about how awkward this is going to be going forward if we're going to individually vote on who gets to do what, rather than accepting the president's recommendations. Just something to keep in mind for the future.
Also to share, typically committee assignments is a collaborative approach. It's not just one. And like I said, as Rachel gave a good point, UA gave a good point, I gave a good point. So to me, this feels more collaborative than just approving this straight across. And I believe would be better for our community to have 2 representatives and give some great insight to the foundation.
As you're aware, I did email everyone, and I asked during a public meeting if people would share with me their preferences, and this list was not made in a vacuum with me rubbing my hands together and enjoying all my phenomenal power. It was simply the list that made sense. Also, it has been our long-standing practice to not appoint a family member of someone who's on an existing board onto a board. And it is my understanding that Dr. Ian has a family member who is on the foundation board?
That's correct.
Yes. And so for the,
Her child. Child's a student representative.
uh-huh.
So is this a bylaw?
It's not a bylaw, but as someone who comes from a long, long line of family businesses, it makes good, solid sense. Part of the reason we have students on those positions is so that they can learn leadership, and it's hard to learn leadership with your parent sitting next to you. I also wouldn't put George on the Parks Board because his wife is on there, and I think that just makes good logical sense. Rachel?
I would just like to compliment Dr. Yinson on how he has participated in those meetings. Really insightful, really thorough, really conscientious, and represents the student body extremely well. And while I agree it would be helpful to have a second person on the foundation, I do believe that I wouldn't in any way want to forfeit his authentic participation. As you said that, I thought, yeah, my child wouldn't speak up if I were sitting there either, so
Neither would mine.
I'm going to say that.
But as a point well taken, I would like to amend the motion or move that we nominate Lawrence to the foundation in addition to Rachel. So is there a second for that? Rachel, thank you. So now we're discussing Lawrence, and then we'll return to UA, and then we'll return to the original.
I think Lawrence has to accept that.
Oh, Lawrence, do you accept that nomination? Sorry.
Well, this is a little bit complicated. I mean, personally, I think I already do the policy committees and also the foundation, public foundation. So personally, I prefer somebody else to serve in there. But again, as I said, I'm flexible. So in case we cannot have other candidate, I can kind of the last. I mean, if he last results, if we cannot find a good person for that.
Are you willing to serve on the
Yes,
foundation?
yes.
Okay.
But again, as I said, I prefer some other people to do that.
Mhm.
So that's my situation. Thank you.
Okay, and I did take into consideration the burden of all of your assignments when I suggested that the policy committee is wrapping up. So that will unburden you. Yeah, we're all very excited about that. So if no one else has anything to say about Daisha?
I do. I think that this right here is an example of trying to cause division in a board, and I think it's very embarrassing to our community. Dr. Yin has volunteered. Having her son, who's a senior, serve a few times, it would be between her and her son, not a decision that we're making. Now putting Lawrence in the middle, to me, continues to send a message, like Lawrence said, you know, both the leadership team and the policy committee, we have asked to serve and been told no, and once again, UA has asked to serve here, and you've told her no and tried to put Lawrence in. So I think the message of collaboration and working together, I think this is an example of the unwillingness to allow others to serve.
Well, Mrs. Mumford, collaboration doesn't mean you always get your way, and I apologize for that, but that's just how it is. I'm perfectly happy to leave one person on the foundation board, but if there's an insistence that there must be two, I think Lawrence is an acceptable second. So we're going to go ahead and start that vote. If you would like, we're voting on whether or not to make Lawrence an additional nominee to the West Lafayette Foundation. Okay, so that passes 5-2. So if we return to the list, that adds Lawrence to the, oh, I can't edit this, sorry. All right, so back to the nomination for Dr. Yin to be on the West Lafayette Foundation. Is there any further discussion on that? No? Okay, I'll start the vote. Oh, sorry.
I recognize the need for having somebody else on the Education Foundation. I do also recognize the conflict with two members of the same family, and I know that it may appear to be something that could be between the two of them, but I think your son is a senior this year, correct? So he would be stepping off mid-year. I would suggest that we wait to add another member and till that point to allow him to finish off that term, and then I think adding Dr. Yin at that point, I think would be very reasonable. That allows for transition there, but also protects the dynamic on the board. It's something that I'm sensitive about with community boards as well.
Okay.
But we did just vote to appoint Lawrence to it.
I
I
think Lawrence
voted no.
could step down mid-year if that was something he was interested in doing.
The bylaw says that there can be 3 board members, so it actually could be all 3 that serve on it if it was decided.
Okay, Dr. Yin?
I just want to clarify that when I volunteered to serve on it, I didn't think about my son serve on it. He's now so old enough to be independent. I barely know what he does, and actually a couple of times, and the first time I know he's on it is Sean sent me a picture of him making a speech or something at the meeting. And he's quite independent. I volunteer to serve on it only because I feel they're part of the community that I have the capacity to reach in terms of raise fund and also the alumni news, and because I have a lot of connection there and I want to contribute. That's my whole intention. It has nothing to do with my family members, but I appreciate that George pointed out there's a family regulation. I respect that, and I agree with David. I think to reduce that and connection, and I will not serve on it as a third person at this time. I'll wait until my son graduates, which will be in May, and then we can decide that time.
Okay,
Thanks.
so you are not accepting the nomination at this time, and therefore we don't need to vote on it. And so we can move back to the original motion, which was the whole slate, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll also remind the rest of the members of the board that there will be an additional personnel change mid-year on this board that we've all already talked about. So I'm just trying to keep it all even. All right, can we go ahead and vote on the rest of the slate? Cool. To approve the nominations. There we go. Thank you. All right, what is next? Dr. Greiner, I would love to hear your superintendent report.
I would love to report, Mrs. Austin, and mine is short. I'd like to provide a quick calendar update. February 13th, no school for students, as teachers will be focused on professional development. Remember that February 16th, school is in session at this time. To conclude the superintendent report, I'd like to ask Mrs. Roth to please report on accounts payable and our fund reports.
Certainly. Claims for the period of January 3rd, 2026 to February 4th, 2026 total $3,866,438.59. That amount includes both Wabash Valley Education Center and corporation expenses. For that same period, salaries and benefits totaled $2,811,207.34. And then a final fund report is included in the board packet for the month of December 25th, for the month ending December 25th, 2025. And total funds on hand amounted to $20,112,699.13, with an education fund balance of $8,127,134.85. And then finally, a preliminary fund report for January is included in the board packet. But please note, the month has not yet been completed, nor has it been reconciled.
There we go. Thank you.
May I ask a quick question about that?
Sure.
If you have the information available, if not, you can just send it to me later. I noticed in the object breakdown that it appears that we pay transfer tuition. Is that true? And if so, who do we pay it to?
So it is possible that we could pay. We do have some students who, for a variety of reasons, might not be receiving their educational services in our district. That could be a case for a student who has maybe services through special education. Could be for a variety of other reasons. But we can look at, you were looking at a specific line, correct? On the object breakdown?
It was a part of the pie chart in the object
Okay,
breakdown.
so that would be the most common reason. We could also have students that are, for whatever reason, placed out of our district for health purposes or for a variety of other reasons. Sometimes students who are have run afoul of the law can be placed out of our district and educated elsewhere. So there are reasons that we could be paying for students to be educated elsewhere. Anything else? Lawrence?
Yeah, I think I answered that question in the email, but I just want maybe you can share more, just the same information regarding the cash balance for referendum account and also for operation account, fund account. So we kind of, the cash reservation kind of going down. So that make me quite a little bit nervous. So if you can share more information, I mean, the whole community can get a better understanding our situation, that will be better, I think. Thank you.
Yes. So typically, we've been near 100% tax collection for property taxes. We were 85%, and a lot of that was due to appeals. And so that affected our operations fund, and it affected our referendum fund, since those are based on collection of property taxes. In addition, the high school track project and purchase of a bus came out of the operations fund, and those were one-time hits, and so that's where you see that reduction.
Yeah, I have no problem with those expenses. I think we are kind of pretty, the administration team did, business office did excellent work regarding. So just because our income, the levy kind of going down. But I mean, 15%, that's quite a lot. I mean, I'm just wondering, is that a big apartment to go appeal? Or, I mean, that's who make that appeal and then just kind of,
It is property owners appealing, challenging what they were charged, and that money, once the appeal has been addressed and determined, those dollars
all the same.
would come our direction at whatever the agreed upon amount is through the process of appealing.
But do you think these things happen very often? This is the first time for me to say we have only collect 85%. Normally, whatever we have, we just collect pretty much close to 100. So
For us, our district, no, we've typically seen the collection.
Yeah,
It is
pretty good.
because of, if you remember when the challenges were based on the apartments.
yeah.
Yeah,
I heard-
that's where there was encouragement to appeal, not by us. But that's where it just has to work through that process.
Rachel, can you
Okay,
give the
thank you.
history on that real quick? Do you remember 2008? Was that before your time? No? You've been here a minute. Yeah. Yeah, it was. But wasn't there 2008 was the housing crisis and all the schools got paid late? And it's my understanding that that's why the cash reserves were kept so high for so long, was because school districts got burned by not getting their property tax disbursements on time.
I believe, though, Mr. Wong's question was, why is it lower? And a part of it is those one-time expenses, and then the revenue is down.
Right.
And I'm
But the
suggesting that
revenue being down has happened before. It's just been a minute.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
just
sorry.
going by this, we've collected 85% as opposed to current 100%. And so
Right.
that's,
We're saying the same
respectfully, that's
thing.
what I can answer to.
Yeah,
Does that
yep,
make,
yep.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and Michelle actually told us that story
Was
a
that,
couple of
yeah, you're
meetings
right.
ago.
You're right. Okay, David.
So just for clarification, when you say that we're down 15%, that's down 15% of, there's 15% that hasn't yet been collected because the individuals or companies are appealing that, and so none of their property tax has been paid in, and so once their appeal is dealt with, it'll be some amount in that 15% that we will get.
Correct.
It's not that appeals have already been decided and the revenue is down 15%, but that revenue, that 15% will be coming in.
Yes.
Within a little bit of a margin of error.
Yes.
At some point, hopefully relatively soon, once the appeals are decided.
That is correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Purper.
Everybody good? Let's, yeah, go ahead.
Question for Dr. Greiner or the policy committee. I don't know the best process. The parent that had mentioned the questions about our policy and enrolling in classes and extracurricular. I was wondering at the next board meeting, we could bring that policy forward as a first reading to kind of look at the policy and see what is it saying, or where are we at, and consider that.
That, I will say that, yes, Mrs. Witt, please respond, but Mr. Rogers has been in contact, has talked about that policy in the past. It is an old policy and one that'll be retiring.
So does this topic need to go in our current big policy we're talking about right now, C-125, or is this a different, I mean, in some ways it has to do with that because it's capacity, but in other ways it doesn't. Is this something that we need to look at, a new policy to address this?
That would be the board's decision.
How about, Reese, go ahead, sorry, Rachel.
Well, what I was going to say is, I do agree that that policy probably needs to be reviewed, but that is not going to be something that comes up in March, April. That's going to be something that's really going to start to hit in July and August of next year. And so it'd be my recommendation that we set that aside and schedule that perhaps for first reading in April or even May, so that it could get some attention that it deserves and not kind of compounded with the other higher things. If we could just wrap up, deal with the transfer boundaries conversation, but also legal settlement, sorry, that's the wording that we need to use, but also just get through this first round and be able to rescind all of the previous policies and get down to one set of policies, and I think there will be a need to go in and grab some of these other ones and look at them. But part of this is just pacing. So I just don't, I think it's going to get buried and not get the attention it needs if we try and do it this coming next
I
meeting.
think bringing it forward in the March meeting, number one, recognizes community members' valid concerns. I also think, once again, as we've been talking about, you know, this year what we're trying to do is show our community that we're listening and care about their input. And we have several families that live in our school district that will be voting on the referendum that are homeschooling. So I think that bringing it in the March one just shows, here's what the policy is, because I think many of us aren't even sure what it is. That doesn't mean it has to be decided immediately, but I do think it's an important detail because it will be involved in our capacity numbers as we're looking at that in the next few months.
So are we rushing that one then? Putting a rush on that one?
Speaking of transparency, all of our policies are up on the corporation website. If any board member ever wants to read them, you can just go get on the corporation website and look at them. If you have any questions about that one, it's out there.
Dr. Greiner, would you put a note in Friday notes about that policy in particular and some of the concerns that might surround it?
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you.
Mrs. Austin.
All right, let's go on to the board reports. I attended the foundation meeting for Rachel, and they were working on strategic planning and mission and statement and values. It was a great discussion, and there was pizza. So thank you for letting me attend that on your behalf. And I also renewed my oath of office at the Redevelopment Commission, and they spent money. So George, what's going on with the legislature?
I will be going to State House Day next week to talk to our legislators in person to get a sense of what they're dealing with and hopefully give them a sense of what we're dealing with. So Godspeed to me, I guess.
Thank you for doing that. Lawrence, do you have a report today? Okay, Rachel?
Thank you for going to that meeting. It was, knowing that it was a long-range planning meeting, and I'm not long-range, I wanted to put somebody else in there for that one. I do have some notes from Wendy. Tickets are on sale for Scarlet and Gray Dinner and Auction. That is Saturday, March 28th. It is at the Stables this time. Information is on the foundation website. There are sponsorship opportunities available. The theme this year is your senior prom, so if you come, you'll get to see me in an exciting dress. The spring cycle for the teacher grants opened last week. Applications are due Friday, March the 13th. They have been trying to, the foundation has been trying to work very hard to raise funds to meet increased number of grant requests and try and fund as many teacher requests as possible. The scholarship application window for students closed today. The foundation has 28 named scholarships, with some scholarships offering multiple awards. That selection process is handled by committees of teachers, counselors, and coaches, and then handed back to the foundation to notify recipients later this spring. And then finally, tomorrow, February 10th, is Indiana Public Education Foundation Day. This is sponsored by the Indiana Association of Public Education Foundations. It raises awareness of the needs of these. When I came on the board, public school foundations were unheard of, and now they are a necessity. So they champion academic excellence, empower students, strengthen public schools across Indiana. Our executive director, Wendy Eiler, is a board member for this foundation. So you may see posts on that on social media, and please feel free to share those. Talk about how you see the awesome work the foundation does, and it is awesome. Also, January 28th, in ISBA, we had the Region 4 coffee chat here. Thank you, Dr. Greiner, for allowing us to use this space to have a coffee chat. We had some wonderful representation from around Region 4, some great conversations, and really a great local opportunity to get to hear from other school boards. Particularly interesting to hear from both Tiffany School Board and Lafayette School Board present at that chat. Hopefully next time we have one of those, somebody from our board other than me will also be able to attend. Last note here is to mark your calendars, please, for Monday, April the 6th. That is the Region 4 meeting where we'll kind of get some new legislative updates. And along those lines, Terry Spradlin continues to send out the legislative updates to all of us on Friday, and those are always a good time to read.
Thank you, and I'm sorry I couldn't be here. It was the 2-hour delay that screwed
I
up.
wasn't trying to shame anybody.
I
I'm
know.
just saying it was worthwhile, and if you can
It
come, you
was,
can
and
come.
that 2-hour delay really screwed it all up for me. So thank you for doing that. David, go ahead.
I would make a joke that it was too cold for Parks and Rec, but actually our parks are a wonderful place even in the winter. If you didn't get a chance to go over to Case and Family Park for some sledding, the reports I heard, I was too cold for me to go out. But fantastic sledding. The maintenance staff was even able to clear off the stairway up, so you're not like trudging up a slippery hill and falling down every 5 feet. You actually have a nice clear staircase to get up, and it's a wonderful experience for families. Also, the ice skating rink is open. It's winter, but we're already thinking about summer. Summer camp registration was on Saturday at 8 a.m. and filled up right away. This is your annual reminder that our community is vastly underserved for summer camp opportunities, for full day summer camp opportunities. So it's something to continue to talking to groups around the community about and trying to expand our capacity. The meeting itself was relatively light because several folks were gone for training events, and there wasn't a lot of other updates. Things are going well.
Thank you.
Smoothly run operation over there.
Yue, is anything going on with GLASS right now?
The GLASS meeting was canceled for this month, and so there's no update for that. And I would like to echo what Desha proposed regarding the parents' request on the extracurriculum and partially enrolling in our school for those homeschool families. And I heard similar comments during my campaign years ago. And so it sounds like the problem was there for more than 20 years, probably even. So hopefully we can solve the problem. And because I did hear similar concerns, and those people pay the higher tax, but because they homeschool their kids cannot attend our activities at all. And hopefully they can join us, even just partially. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Daisha, what's going on with the other foundation?
The Public Schools Foundation of Tippecanoe County currently has teacher grants open until March 9th. Their Cupcake Challenge at Harrison High School is on February 13th. GLCA and other high schools are participating in that, and it's a really fun event. SK Hynex donated $50,000, and so they're working on the best way to use that donation. And that's the update for them.
That's great news. Thank you. So I have added to my list that we have a work session on March 2nd at 6 PM to specifically discuss the transfer policy. There will be public comment at that meeting. We have the possibility of a work session on March 9th if needed, and our regular meeting will be March 9th at 6 PM. I need a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Lawrence, second by Rachel. I'd call it yes. There we go. Let's do buttons. That's a majority. We're adjourned at 9:20 PM. Thank you.